Hello there, folks. Hope you guys are doing well. Sorry for the little delay here. I am trying to, excuse me, sort out a bit of a technical issue, which hopefully I will have resolved momentarily. But in the meantime, just to let you know what is going on this evening, we're going to be playing a little bit of Halo Combat Evolved. Specifically, we're going to be taking a look at the Master Chief Collection and the, sorry, multitasking here, the comparison between the original Silent Cartographer level versus the version of it that was included as like a remaster in the Master Chief Collection. One of the cool things that this particular version of the game provides is the ability to switch between legacy graphics, i.e. the original graphics, and the new version with the press of a button. So it's an extremely powerful learning tool, I feel, in terms of evaluating the quality of remakes and talking about how art gets transitioned or preserved or replaced, etc. And of course, with the recent announcement of the, well, not announcement, but the recent unveiling, let's just say, of several new trailers for the campaign Evolved, the new remaster that's being built in Unreal Engine 5. Figured this would be a good time to start off a series that I've been meaning to do for a while, which is specifically to discuss remakes, the art of remakes, the challenges inherent to them, and specifically to chat about how this is reflected in Halo and the legacy that was kind of, let's just say, set up by the Master Chief Collection and now has been propagated by this new remake. So, time permitting, we're going to be jumping into one of the, I think, probably the most iconic level in the game, called the Silent Cartographer. At any rate, that was the level that Halo Studios, aka 343 Industries, decided to use as a source for, one second, I'm just setting up the game catcher here, for their first unveiling. Let's see, is this working? 3, 2, 1, go. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the actual screen working. Yeah, there we go, okay. So, yeah, to use it for their actual, announcement of the remake, what footage did they use, what level did they choose to show off the Silent Cartographer. So, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Specifically, I want to take the time to talk about, the inherent technical and artistic challenges of making a remake in the first place, and maybe even like the ethics of doing so. And so I think this is a good time to discuss it, given that, if you guys saw the Game Awards, there was a bunch of, not the Game Awards, sorry, Summer Games Fest and then the Xbox Showcase. There's been a lot of cool stuff that's come out about it, so great time to talk about it. As a brief intro, my name is John. I've been streaming for a little over a year now. And I'm a game developer. I love talking about video games. And if you have any questions about the games industry, about game development, any of that stuff, please feel free to let me know. I have also worked on, I think, 2 remakes, just kind of 2.5, let's say. One game that was like a port that wound up getting changed quite a bit, and then like a remaster and then a remake over the course of the past X years of my career. So I feel very strongly about this topic as a developer and also as a player and somebody interested in like the art and preservation of games. So I'll have a lot to say, but of course this is a discussion. So whether you're watching in real time or watching the VODs back, feel free to hit me up with any questions you might have, any comments. I'm gonna probably be somewhat harsh with some of my feedback. None of it is intended to be scathing or inflammatory or anything like that. It's literally just sharing my thoughts, and I'm open to any kind of feedback. So please, feel free to leave me a comment in the YouTube comment section, reach out to me on Discord, wherever you like. This is done with respect to my peers who have worked on both the original and the remake and the remaster and everything in between. I am a lifelong fan of the Halo series, fan of the books as well, in addition to the video games. Not as much a fan of the TV show, but I did recently see, why am I blanking on it? Forward Unto Dawn. That was really good. And I've seen like some of the other like peripheral materials. I actually like found a place where they have an arcade near my house Well, not near my house. It was a bit, it was a bit of a drive. But I found a place where they actually have like Halo Fire Team Raven. I went to play that just to make sure that I like got the full experience. Couldn't make it through Halo Wars. It wasn't really my scene. But yeah, suffice to say that I'm pretty invested in the Halo franchise. Pretty big fan. I invested countless hours playing Halo 2 multiplayer on like split screen in the games lounge um, back in the day. So yeah, I mean, really happy, really excited to dive into this and just talk about it. But yeah, let me catch up with chat real quick. I see Shinigami in chat. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. You're in a call with your friends about Christianity. That's given the mention of Halo, I suppose there's a little bit of a thematic connection there. But yeah, that's cool. If you need to go back to the call at any point, like feel free. Obviously, I hope you have a good chat. I'd be curious to. Sorry, I keep dropping the stupid thing. I hope you have a good chat. I'd be curious to hear more about it if you want to share later on. But then, oh, I just realized, of course, that the game audio was off. It'll help if I turn this on. Yeah, well, I am kind of, I'm definitely not immune to Unk comments. But, you know, like, I played these games when I was younger, and I played them with friends, and there was, like, a little, games group that we had going on that was, we would just kind of cluster around this, like, old CRT TV and just play multiplayer for hours and hours on end, like skipping class and stuff, which I would not encourage. But at the time, it was like, I don't know. Halo was such like a community thing. It wasn't even just like, oh, it's just this video game that we're playing or whatever. It was a real kind of meeting point, if that makes any sense, right? It was like it had a real strong social component to it. But yeah, I see Sleep Paralysis Demon in the chat as well. Hi, Sleep Paralysis Demon. Hope you are doing well this evening. Thank you for joining us. Let's see. Yeah, you can send me a friend request. Feel free. My gamer tag is up there on the upper right. It's John the Maven, but with the letters reversed. Mon the Javen. I'm oh so clever. But yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start off by diving into the Silent Cartographer. I'm gonna play the intro cutscene once, and then a little bit of the opening beachhead act. And then we'll go back and play the cutscene with the other version of the graphics, whichever version we didn't previously experience. And we're going to talk about like setup, pacing, framing, just the decisions that were made from my perspective anyway about how to set up this level. And then if we have time, which we should because Silent Cartographer is not all that long, I would like to bring up the trailer for the campaign evolved afterwards and just tab through it a little bit with y'all and talk about how I feel about some of the changes they're making there. Granted that, it's still a work in progress. I think it's coming out in a month or two, but whenever it does, like, they still have time to release patches and things could still change, right? So, final verdict pending. But anyway, let's dive right in. So, yeah, I'm gonna play, don't judge me, okay? Don't judge me. I'm gonna play on easy, but it's because I'm doing commentary and because I want to pause and fuck around and not really focus on the combat, okay? I promise I've beaten the game on harder difficulty modes, okay? This is just for the purpose of playing the game. Actually, are there any skulls that, like, make you invisible or anything? Infinite ammo, I don't really need that. Respawn, random element, no. Run birthday party is really funny, actually. Okay, now let's just get started with the Silent Cartographer, and I think we are good to go, right? Yeah. Visuals and effects, classic. Yeah, we're going to start with the classic version of the music and the sounds and everything. Let's just go. I'm doing okay, thanks, Sleep Paralysis Demon. Yes, that's fine. I recently kind of wrapped up this big, long work project that was pretty stressful, and so I'm kind of starting to get back to normal. I took a few days off. Yesterday I went on a trip with my partner. It was nice to just get to spend some time together and reconnect. Get away from the screens for a little while, How are you doing? Also, let me know if the volume sounds okay compared to my voice and all that.
I couldn't believe that what they call the Silent Cartographer is somewhere under this island. The Cartographer is a map room that will lead us to Halo's control center. The island has multiple structures and installations. One of them contains the map room.
We're approaching the LZ. It's gonna be hot. Get set to cut out swing. Touchdown. Hit it, Marines.
Oh, Epsilon? Cool. I like that name. Yeah, I'm happy to. That would be a little simpler, actually. Yeah, I'm gonna just adjust the volume a little bit, but yeah. Cool, Epsilon. Well, yeah, I hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us this evening. So, as we get onto the beachhead over here, there's a couple of things that I want to point out. First of all, that intro, right, where we are in the ship. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to stop talking for a second and just kind of focus on the audio experience. Audio could be a tiny bit louder. Sounds good. Right, let's boost it up to there. Let me know how this works. And hopefully it should duck down a little bit when I talk, which it looks like it's working, but hopefully it comes through okay. Oh yeah, I main the assault rifle too. It's my favorite. Actually, no, I lied. I think the plasma rifle is my favorite. In theory, like, I really love the needler, but I can never seem to get any real use out of it. Well, I'm playing on easy. Like, in higher difficulty modes, it really falls off. Okay, so let's keep going until we see Fohammer come in here, and then we will restart after a little bit of commentary and go watch the intro cutscene again. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Epsilon says, I used to be here on the stream on my other account a few times. It was called Epsilon. Oh, yeah. That name looks familiar for sure. That's why, but if you don't remember, you can just use the full name if it's easier for you. I feel like you stopped by once before with this name as well, because it seems really familiar. Yeah, I think I might have actually been playing a spooky game or something, and I was like, or it was like late at night, and I was like, oh, we've got an actual sleep paralysis demon in the chat. I remember that. That was really cool. Yeah, I appreciate you stopping by again. Have you been well since then? I definitely remember the Epsilon thing, yeah. Be curious why the name change if you feel like sharing. Not a rhetorical question, just wondering. Okay, so let's take the time to take in our surroundings a little bit. So a couple of things that I think are important and worth noting is that when you first fly in on the Pelicans, you are in a first-person perspective, obviously, right? And that first-person perspective is never really broken until you, well, even throughout getting to the beach. We can also go back and look at some of the earlier levels, but I think, you know, once the Chief is introduced, the game does a really good job of keeping you in Chief's, like, inside the helmet, inside the visor, right? Obviously, there are cutscenes where you see Chief from the exterior, so it's not like a universal thing. But overall, I think what they were going for, and I think this was stated specifically in interviews, was the idea that the Chief is kind of a stand-in for the player. So at the end of the day, like, the Chief is his own character. He has his own thoughts and feelings and motivations, especially in the books. Like, obviously, he's a more fleshed out character, I think, than he was at this point in the series for sure. Oh, whoops, wrong button. Actually, I have to check my mappings because I just sort of defaulted to F for melee. So, one second, I gotta check my mappings. This is stupid. Where's melee? Melee is Q. Okay, that's weird. Oh, okay, now that actually feels intuitively correct. Okay, so that being said, I think that there was this incentive or this mission objective, so to speak, to try to make the players feel as though they were in the world, right? And a common technique or a common, like, piece of direction, you could call it, at this point in, like, the history of gaming, was to basically kind of make the main character what you would call a cipher, or like an empty shell that the player was nudging around. So, regardless of whether or not you like that approach, I know some people really like it because they feel like it helps them immerse themselves more in the game. Some people prefer the fact that they have tried to add more characterization to Chief over the years, and, you know, explore who he is as a person, as opposed to just being a, you know, an empty shell. I like that as well. But what I am interested in is seeing how whether or not that winds up getting preserved in future iterations of the game, and if not, why might that be? Why are it like, just to spoil it and then jump ahead a little bit? The Silent Cartographer reveal for the remake, the Unreal Engine 5 remake, specifically has camera cuts that break away from the chief. Now, this might seem like a minor detail, but Titanfall 1, I promise this is relevant. Titanfall 1 was one of my favorite games when it came out. And Titanfall 2 was almost ruined for me by the inclusion of a simple change to the way that the camera worked in that game, which was namely that um, which is namely that the when you get into a Titan in Titanfall 1, it's like one of the most. I wish you could see me gesturing with my hands right now. It's one of the most satisfying and viscerally compelling power fantasy moments in any video game, because you see this Titan like come down from the sky. There's this amazing kind of like rush of energy and air and power as it lands down, and then the transitions between you and the Titan are all done in first person, right? So you never break that first person, you never lose momentum, you never break the first person perspective, rather, you never lose momentum, and it all just feels like you are transforming into the Titan almost. So it extends your power fantasy and it upgrades you. But I think, this is speculation, but I think in Titanfall 2, they decided, okay, well, we want to give players more customization options for the Titan, and so they need to be able to see their own Titan from the exterior, and therefore we're going to break the camera into third person the moment that the Titan picks you up or you start to transition in. For me, personally, that killed all the fucking momentum, and it was so disappointing. It might seem like a nitpick or whatever, but for me, the transition between being outside the Titan and going back in and having that be so smooth was like, did so much to sell the value of the power fantasy of the, like getting your Titan, and that's like the fulcrum of the game in a lot of ways. So I disagree with that choice, but let's see how they handle it in the remake. A couple of other things to note. There's some rough edges here, right? You can see that the texture of this planet in the background doesn't hold up super well. A lot of the colors are kind of pixelated. The sky is remarkably well done, though, for what it's worth. Like, the skybox has all these animated twinkling lights, which, must have been a challenge for the time to pull off. It's quite impressive that they actually managed to do that. The moon, or this could be a planet. I'm like showing my lack of Halo lore knowledge here, but like this celestial object over here also looks really good. The fact that they actually put in some clouds, obviously it's a flat texture, right? It's not volumetric, but they still put it in and made it functional and added something to this landscape is great. I think there is actually a lot of little intricate detail that has been woven into this space for what it's worth. I think it might actually be worth playing this on the original Xbox as well. I actually have a copy downstairs, but unfortunately, I have not gotten it to work on my. Basically, I need to like pull my old Xbox out of storage and like put it back in action, so to speak, 'cause it's not working on the Xbox One, which is goofy as hell, but whatever. But yeah, so the way that I kind of feel when I'm on this planet right now is that there are some signs of life. There are some signs of familiarity. Like obviously, we have the ocean over here. We have, some, or the sea, I guess is probably a more apt term. We have plant life. We have some grass. We have some trees. So it feels relatively familiar. It feels like obviously there are comparisons to be made between this and Earth, for example. But also, it feels hollow. It feels vast. It feels like untouched. It apart from the Covenant, it feels like it has been kind of waiting here quietly for a long time. And if you don't follow the mission objectives, you can just kind of get lost in being in this sort of vast, open-ended space. And there's something about this that I think was, maybe a necessary byproduct of the technical limitations of the age, maybe to some extent a deliberate choice, but either way, this kind of feeling, this openness, this quietness, this hollowness, is something that I think has been lost in modern iterations of games. Now, that being said, this is also part of the soundscape. Let's just listen for a second. The soundscape is very sparse, very minimalistic almost. There's not a whole lot of feedback that you're getting from a lot of different directions. It's really, really simple, really, really subtle, and we'll see how that changes as we go inside. But I think part of the reason for those choices is that realistically, like, your focus gets drawn to a couple of things. Number one, this fucking thing. that fucking thing. And then, there's a few objects here, obviously, to break up sight lines and add, like, cover and things like that. So you could argue that this area feels a little perfunctory. Like, it's basically like, okay, well, they put the rocks here because they needed cover. But, I feel like they do a decent enough job mixing in, like, these artificial covenant structures with the more natural, like, rock formations and stuff like that to indicate that, like, to make it feel a little bit natural. Like, obviously, the covenant would want to put up fortifications of some kind, right? So, all in all, I feel like the experience that I get when playing through this is that I feel dwarfed by these massive objects. I feel a sense of maybe awe and reverence, maybe loneliness in being in a space like this, and it feels like I'm starting to unearth something that's been asleep for a very long time. So that kind of, I think, fits, right? I think I actually do want to keep playing for a little bit longer before we go back and rewatch the cutscene. So maybe we'll go up to the checkpoint with the door, and then we'll go back. But let me check on chat real quick. Yeah, the assault rifle is so good. Let's just go ahead and like play the sound for a minute. So it's such a like satisfying and compelling sound. I don't think it has the same fidelity, right, of a modern assault rifle sound in something like Call of Duty. Obviously, the sound design is very, very different. But there is something about like the fire rate and the tone of it that just feels very satisfying to play with. And I think I might be mistaken, but I think technically speaking, there's only two variations of the sound. Let's play it again. Right, so there's, I don't know if you can kind of hear the pitch. Sorry if this sounds a little cringy or whatever, but there's like two pitches, right? It's like the da, and then there's another one that's like da, 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 and it keeps bouncing back and forth between those two things. So basically, audio, for whatever reason, audio files are pretty chunky, and especially going back into the early days of game development, like, we had to be very aggressive with, well, I say we, I wasn't, I don't, I don't want to age myself specifically, but I wasn't a developer when this game came out. Yeah, just to be clear, right? Neither Halo 2 or Halo 3. My time came later than that. But that being said, it will be. So I'm not maybe as much of a nunk as some of you might expect. But anyway, the even going into like the Xbox 360 era and PS4, things started to change a bit in PS4, but like audio tends to get the short end of the stick in terms of like memory budget and disk allocation. Like, having worked with audio and on audio teams quite a bit, I will say that like we are usually the last to get a memory budget. So oftentimes it's like, okay, everybody else gets to get their budget allocation first, and then we get to make do with what we have left. And audio files are kind of big, so especially if you want them to be in high quality, so a lot of extra work had to be done to compress down the audio files and to shave off variations. It's like a modern assault rifle in a game like Call of Duty. You might hold down the trigger button and hear like 20 different sounds, right? Because there's probably going to be different sounds for the bullets firing, the reverb, depending on what environment you're in, the mech of the gun, like jingling and jangling and moving around, etc., etc. In this game, you hear like two sounds, fire one and fire two. And they're just iterated and randomized and looped between, and there's not really a whole lot of variation there. Same thing with the plasma rifle, right? I think there's two different assets there. The sounds themselves are layered, right? It's not just necessarily a drag and drop out of a library. There's some sound design that has been done there, but there aren't very many assets, and the assets there are highly compressed. Just due to the technical limitations of the age. Nowadays, we have more powerful tools that let us apply pitch randomization. We can also, every time you start playing an audio file, you can do what's called seeking. You can jump to an arbitrary position in the audio file. So you can like jump to a few milliseconds in or something like that. You can automate the volume. You can blend between different assets. We have so many different ways to like programmatically change how audio is varied, so we can get a whole lot more variations without incurring like this massive spike in energy cost, in memory cost, excuse me. Although there are like CPU related trade-offs that we have to make, but still, like, we're able to do so much more easily these days. So I think it is totally fine when considering how to make a remake. Like, audio is definitely one of the areas that I think has a lot of room for improvement. but also it's important to remember that the iconic sounds of this game are embedded deep within people's memories and for good reason. And so anybody working on a remake or a remaster has to be very careful to retain the classic feel of the original while also trying to innovate. And that's a very difficult task. But let me get back to chat real quick before I continue. Epsilon says it's first time seeing Halo gameplay. Yeah, let me know what you think. Halo is one of those games that's been, obviously very influential, and for its time was certainly revolutionary in a lot of ways. I will say I don't think it holds up. Like the original game doesn't hold up as like super super great. So I think it's one of those games that I think could very well benefit from a remake or remaster. But if you compare the leap in progress forward between Halo 1 and Halo 2 and then Halo 2 and Halo 3, like there's so much they developed and expanded and grew so quickly as a team over the course of those few years. It's genuinely impressive. Even if I'm not as big a fan of some of the aspects of Halo 1, it's worth playing as a piece of video game legacy and history. Like I think everybody should consider going back and playing like the original Mario game, right? On NES. Well, I guess that's technically not the first one, but you know what I mean, right? Or at least Super Mario and SNES, even if it's like it feels old and clunky or whatever. I think it's like valuable to hold that in your hands, so to speak, and just experience what that was like at that point in time, and then go back and play a modern game and be like, oh shit, so much has changed, right? Maybe some for the better, maybe some for the worse, but yeah, I mean, well, to be fair, I don't think there are too many people out there who are gonna play Mario Galaxy and be like, no, this is too much, I want to go back to NES, we never should have left. Maybe. So, yeah, and so we'll get to the door cutscene, and then we can go back to like turn on the new graphics and do a little bit of a comparison and contrast. But yeah, let me start. Sorry, let me catch up on chat real quick. Sleeper Autos just said Epsilon said I stopped by with this account here already. You found it funny and asked the origin. It was from an anime, and I'm pretty sure you even wrote it down in your watch list. This sounds familiar. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Epsilon says I didn't change the name. I just switched onto my mate. Okay, gotcha. First time I came on here was accidentally logged in on my other account, and I just kept it like that. But I'm way too lazy to change accounts. Yeah, that's actually I'm the same exact way. I made an account specifically for like YouTube stuff. And I was like, I'm going to keep this account, and I'm only going to search up Naruto and video game stuff on this account, and it's going to be totally separate from my personal account. And then it was just more convenient, so I, like, never, like, on my phone or whatever, I never switched back to my regular account. So now, like, my quote-unquote only for YouTube account has now just kind of become my personal account over time, because I'm too lazy to fucking switch back. Shinigami says, honestly, the feeling of 2000 games are so peak. Yeah, there's something about, like, just being in a world that feels like this, that's designed like this. Like, look at this open space, right? There's something almost, like, liminal, I think is the word for it, right? That, if you've seen videos of that channel called Vaporama, or, like, the pool rooms or anything like that, it kind of evokes that aesthetic of there being something eerie and otherworldly about this vast open space. Like, it feels a little unnatural. And so for me, since it was like part of my childhood, I feel like it was, it's like a mixture of.
I'll bet the silent cartographer is somewhere inside that facility. They're already inside. We have to get in there and stop them before they learn the location of the control center.
It's simultaneously. Actually, I'm gonna turn the volume down on my end a little bit. It's simultaneously like. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe nostalgic. It literally is the best way to describe it. But it's like, it feels like simultaneously lonely but also comforting. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. But like, because I have these positive memories associated with them, I think it like is genuinely. I'm doing terribly here. That's embarrassing. Oh my god. It is genuinely like something that I feel at home here, but also it feels like a little bit weird, right? Anyway, I should try to actually focus on, like, not dying on easy mode. Holy shit. Oh, hey there, Yeoman. Hope you're doing well. Hope that you are having a good week. Thank you for joining us. Shinigami says, I felt invested when already playing the game for the first time. When did you, if you don't mind me asking, when did you first play Halo? Let's see. Love playing these old games. Yeah, I do too. It's really nice to just go back and, re-experience them from an older perspective, I guess. Like, see how much holds up and how much doesn't. I do think a lot of the gameplay does basically fundamentally hold up. There's a lot of stuff that this game does that, like, I don't see being, like, lessons that I don't really see being learned or being, like, internalized in a lot of modern games. For one, just how clearly readable everything is. Like, granted, this was partially due to, like, performance limitations at the time, right? But, and graphical limitations and all that. But at the same time, there is something, like, genuinely really charming about this older aesthetic, and not to mention the fact that, oh, I did! God damn it. This is so not good. Come here to see me fucking hamstring myself on easy mode of all fucking things. But yeah, there is genuinely a sort of nostalgia that comes with this that is great. And the way that everything is so readable, like, you can very clearly read the enemies based on their silhouettes. You can also very clearly see that, like what an enemy is holding, like what kind of weapon they're using. You have a very clear sense of threat from location and at any given time. It's very easy to read your environment, although some of the actions and activities of the characters might be a little incomprehensible. Okay, let me finish getting through this little link. No, come on. Okay, fuck me. Finish getting through this little tidbit here, and then I'll get back to the commentary. And clearly, I can't multitask with this game for some reason. It's like cursed. Okay. I do like the fact that they had, like, a very simple but, you know, extant,
The cartographer must be here.
Dynamic music system. You might have noticed that the music dipped low in intensity the moment that we killed off the last, or, like, sorry, the moment that we were, like, no longer directly confronting the enemy in that encounter. And then, of course, it got even, like, quieter when we finally, like, finished the encounter completely. Okay. So, yeah, let me wrap this up real quick with the cutscene with keys, and then I will finish catching up on chat, actually, and then we'll go back to the cutscene. Thank you for your patience.
Cortana to Keys.
Go ahead, Cortana. Have you found the control center?
Negative, Captain. The Covenant have impeded our progress. We can't proceed unless we can disable this installation's security system.
Understood. We're still en route to the objective. I may be out of contact when we get there. Here are your orders. I want you to use any means necessary to force your way into the facility and find Halo's control center. We have to get to the center before the Covenant. And failure, people, is not an option.
I'll stay on station and keep an eye out for Covenant folks.
That's right, the overshield.
Second squad, ready to roll as soon as everybody's topside.
Cool.
LZ looks secure, sir. Nothing moving. Good luck, people. Keys out.
Nice. Alright, so, let me go ahead and catch up on chat for real, while not, like, getting myself caught in a fucking silly-ass death loop over here. But yeah, I love playing these old games as well. Raymond says, Aaron versus Beatrice. Oh, sorry, Epsilon, I see your comment before perfectly describe what I feel. Are you talking about, like, the sense of, like, openness and loneliness, or whatever else you want to call it, in the level? If so, I'm really glad, because sometimes it's hard to articulate my feelings on stuff like this, so I'm glad that, that's resonating with you as well. That's really cool. Let's see. Aaron versus Beatrice from Umineko and outsmarting, power scaling, writing. Aaron, no diffs. You should chat with, Shinigami about, like, intelligence and outsmarting. I think you guys would have, like, a really interesting conversation about that, actually. 2000s games have way better graphics than modern games IMO. Modern games all look the same and don't have any unique stylized factors, for example, strong color contrast. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I did kind of a bad job of articulating it, but I mean, like, granted, there are exceptions to this, but a lot of games, as you say, kind of have a drab, samey color palette, and especially, like, within any given space that's very competitive, like the shooter space that sort of cringily called You know, there was a whole wave of games that called themselves Halo killers because after Halo came out, everybody wanted a piece of that action, right? So there are all these games that came out specifically trying to be as good as or better than Halo to take over the King of the Hill spot. But one of the things that very few of them managed to succeed in doing was to nail that kind of iconic look. Like, the design of a weapon like this isn't just about being like a cool purple space alien thing, although it is partially that. It's also that if you look at this thing versus the assault rifle, you can immediately tell what it is and like glean something about its function just by like glancing at it, right? And if an enemy is holding one of these things in their hand, you can immediately tell just by looking at the silhouette. I know exactly what that thing is. I know exactly how it works because enemy weapons tend to work the same way that the players do, and you can very quickly discern the level of threat and then form a strategy based on that. And you can also get that information by just through the readability of the characters, their silhouettes, their like armor, their voices and stuff like that. Everything is so clearly delineated, and it comes, I suppose, at the expense of realism. You could argue, but at the same time, it's like it at the very least starts an interesting conversation about like how important is realism really. I think that something that I feel like I observed is that after, especially Uncharted 2, there were other games too, like Metal Gear Solid, but especially after Uncharted 2, there was this move in the industry, a shift in the industry of like everybody wanted to make their games more and more and more cinematic, right? And more realistic, and basically to capitalize on that experience. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it is like just one way to design something. It's just one way to. There's a terrible throw. Not my fault. Somebody put a wall in my way. There we go. And I've come to find that while realism can be genuinely compelling, it's also not something that I should be that in my opinion should be used to like gatekeep something from feeling like compelling in other ways. It's like realism is a choice, and it's a choice. Oh, sorry, I meant to turn on the flashlight. It's a choice that should be made deliberately with intention, right? It's not something that just should be adhered to by default or because it's popular or meta or whatever, right? So you'll probably find me saying the same thing a lot of the times when I'm discussing like reviewing games and stuff, which is like everything is subjective. I don't think that there's like such a thing as an inherently or objectively good piece of art, because art, we as art consumers and art makers can define the standards for what constitutes as good, or constitutes being a good piece of art. But I will say that like once you have established your goal, like whatever your design or artistic goals actually are, you can then evaluate whether or not you succeeded in those particular goals. So if my goal is to make a game that is really, really funny, but none of the jokes land, everybody thinks it's fucking terrible and cringy, well then, you can say I objectively failed at the subjective goal of making a funny game, right? There's nothing inherently good or bad about making a comedy game, but you can make a determination about the success or lack thereof of, your attempts to be funny. So I think that that's worth acknowledging. These design choices are not like they're arbitrary, but they should be made mindfully. Mindfully is what I'm looking for. Or Epsilon says, "I love old stuff, games, movies, anime, and especially women." I think we are kindred spirits in this regard as well. Let me see. Roman then said, "Gives way better atmosphere in older games due to that." Yeah. There is something very unique about the atmosphere of these games. It's almost like surreal or liminal, like we talked about before. Shinigami played it fairly recently. That's cool. The only pre-2000 anime that I consider good are Ashita no Joe and Berserk 1997. I think Berserk 1997 is like my favorite animated iteration of that series. Like obviously there are quote unquote better graphics, and like some of the fight scenes are more intricate, and I guess you could argue like better in the Golden Age arc movies and shit. To say we are not going to speak on the fucking 2016 and 2017 anime. That doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, we got the nice glowing orange blood there. Uh, but yeah, the 1997 anime is genuinely really cool, and I think part of what makes it so effective, even compared to the like more modern iterations or whatnot, is the fact that they maintain this kind of like surreal atmosphere, right? Think about like Guts's theme. It's not like a super well like intricately engineered piece of music. It's not necessarily like got all these crazy orchestral layers or these amazing modern synths or whatever. It's very, very simple. You might even say that it's like borderline minimalistic and repetitive, but it is so hauntingly melancholy. It's so sad, but also like a little bit reverent and a little bit hopeful. It fits Guts so fucking perfectly. And like, I don't care if that was made for like $5 by tapping on a tin can and then singing into it, or if it was, you know, and they didn't have like millions of dollars to hire like to it wouldn't be millions of dollars, but you know, however much money it would take to rent out an entire orchestra and record them and stuff like that. It doesn't matter, right? And that's something that that I can say about this remake as well, is that I kind of don't like the remastered soundtrack, because they changed some of the gestures of like even little things like the strokes of the don't pause strokes on the fucking, of course now I threw myself off of that whatchamacallit. Fuck. On the like the cellos and stuff like that, like they changed the articulation, they changed the way that it was implemented, like some of the notes were implemented. So at the end of the day, it's just like it feels like they were trying to go for a better performance, but in order to, I say in like massive air quotes, but in order to achieve that better performance, it came at the expense of sacrificing the atmosphere of the original, which I very strongly disagree with. I mean, you could say it's just because of the technical limitations of the age or whatever, but for whatever reason, this game has its own unique aesthetic, and that aesthetic is compelling. It feels kind of weird to me to kind of treat that as a mistake, if that makes sense.
Use
You
the
know,
holo panel to shut down the security system.
something that needs to be corrected. So this is a good place to stop, I think. I know I keep saying I'll catch up on chat, but then I want to like play while I'm talking. So let me actually catch up on chat, and then we'll go back to the beginning. The only oh yeah, we talked about that. Oh, hey, Dr. Strangle, hope you're doing well. Have I seen Cursed Halo? Yeah, that's the one with like all these crazy mods and like over the top add-ons and stuff like that. Yeah, I think I've seen that. I don't think I've actually played it, but I was watching a streamer play it at some point. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I also came across a YouTube channel called like what was it? Something corruptions, like unlicensed corruptions, or there's a YouTube video called like corruptions I found at the bottom of the garbage bin or something, and it's just like this dude goes into video games and just like finds ways to mangle and garble their data in such compelling ways. Super funny, kind of surreal, sometimes a little scary, but in a fun way, you know. Let's see. Shinigami won't argue with me because he got scared the last time we argued about FTL Bleach. Oh, was that what you two were going at it? Okay. Was that the one where I was like, oh hey, like calm down everybody, let's all get along or whatever? That sounds familiar. Yeah, you can see I don't have the world's best memory, but I know Shinigami is very passionate about intelligence and like competitions between high intelligence characters. So I figured you guys might like hit it off talking about that, but no pressure, obviously. Um, Dr. Strangle says, unironically, all the trees they added to the Shadow of the Colossus remaster ruined the original's atmosphere. So that's very interesting. I have a really high memory of my of fucking the Shadow of the Colossus remaster, and in my memory, I see it as being peak. Right, last time I played it was several years ago, but I really enjoyed it. But now you're making me wonder if I should go back and play the original for comparison as well. It could be worth diving into that as well. I think I just kind of assumed that it was that since it was great in and of itself, I didn't really go back and play the original to compare it. But yeah, now I'm curious. Let's see. Madara versus Goku. Madara slams maybe Kid Goku. I don't think by the time Goku's in the Frieza arc, I don't think Madara stands a chance unless Genjutsu works, in which case yes. Which is something I do tend to agree with. That I do think Genjutsu works cross first, so that's fine. I showed how inconsistent he is on his standards, and he got. Oh, okay. Well, I'm not trying to start shit again. just vibing on the topic, you know. You're the most internally consistent person ever. I wish I could say the same. Uncharted 2 was okay-ish. Yeah, I didn't love it. At the time, I enjoyed it, but like, it's not really my thing personally. So I respect a lot of the things that they pulled off with it, but it's not really for me, if that makes sense. Hey there, Michael. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping by and joining us this evening. Madara beats every version of Goku. I would be curious to hear more on that. I don't see how he's doing it with like physicals or jutsu, but I do think that he has a chance with genjutsu. I'm just not seeing like. I haven't read far into Super, but from what I've heard, like the feats get insane there. So I don't know how Madara is like contending with that. But yeah, feel free to expand on that if you like. I think that's a good opportunity to glaze Madara and his theme. Yes, always a good idea. Well, you know, Uchiha glaze is basically a prerequisite of being a Naruto fan anyway. So let me do this. I'm going to switch to the new graphics. There we go. Okay. And we're going to go back and we're going to restart the level. And I am going to shut up during the intro cutscene.
The Covenant believe that what they call the silent Cartographer is somewhere under this island. The Cartographer is a map room that will lead us to Halo's control center. The island has multiple structures and installations. One of them contains the map room.
We're approaching the LZ. It's gonna be hot. Get set to come out quick. Touchdown! Hit it, Marines!
And so I'm probably going to tab back and forth a little bit between old and new graphics. So yeah, when you see me, I'm just pressing the tab button. That is something that is really, really cool about this game as a package, you know, that you can just pull this off. But yeah, let's stick with this for a minute. Just go through this initial encounter and then we'll do some commentary. I swear I used to be good at this game. You're just gonna have to take my word for it, I guess. Go! What am I doing wrong? Okay, anyway, so seeing as I'm not able to pull off the smooth pro-spec gamer shit that I was hoping to, I'll just start commenting on certain things, right? And let my teammates do most of the work for me. So first of all, the sounds of these things over here. Unfortunately, looping sounds seem to need to restart when you initially, like, when you do the tab thing. It doesn't, like, work right away. But the first thing that I notice is just how much more clustered and populated the world is. Like, there are mountains, there are, it's just, I swear I've beaten it on normal, and I think I've beaten it on hard as well, but I haven't done legendary or heroic. I'm not like, wait, hang on, what are the difficulty modes? It's like, it's easy, normal, legendary, and heroic, right? So I've done... Fuck, I'm sure I have the achievements that I could pull up at some point. But yeah, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me tonight. Anyway, like low-key embarrassed that I keep fucking dying on easy mode. But anyway, I will cope with that later. Point being, look at how sparse the original is compared to this, right? Now, I think it's tempting to look at something like this and basically say like, okay, this is objectively better. I mean, look, there are more layers of clouds and fog. There are, you know, more little islands, so it looks like a more lived-in space. There's mountain ranges in the back. It makes it feel like a more kind of thoroughly fleshed out, thought out space. Those little islands and stuff. And then the ring itself is like towering up and you can kind of see more clouds in it. It feels like a more completely realized place. Not to mention that this planet over here also looks a bit more. Well, there's a couple of interesting details that is preserved. Actually, they have like the shadow on it. That's really nice. So they preserved the shadow, but I think they added some details here which maybe were intentional in the original. It would be nice to look at the original, like to see if we could find the concept art for the original, right? But it definitely looks smoother and stuff like that. But I mean, that feeling of emptiness and loneliness is just gone. I mean, granted, you could still argue that this feels kind of lonely. It feels kind of remote, kind of sparse and all that. But there is something that it loses that liminal edge, right? And so this is just my opinion, obviously, but I do feel like there is something about this space, about it being rough around the edges, about it being empty, a little bit devoid, a little hollow, that makes it feel uniquely Halo. This, and especially the remake that we'll see in a little bit, just kind of feels like they're dumping in as I don't want to be too like derogatory, but they are dumping in a lot of stuff in order to just like say, look, we made it better. But did you really? You made it more like graphically better. You made it like you increased the graphical fidelity for sure, but is it better? Well, that's subjective, right? It's better in, oh wow, those there's like really blocky shadows in the gun there. That's really weird. Um, but you can say that it's objectively better if your criteria are make the game have more realistic graphics. But in terms of if your goal is to evoke a certain kind of emotion, will this just factually like well, I was going to say factually evokes a different emotion, but that's going to depend on the person. So it's not objective. I will say that I also think that, you know, for me, just looking at this from the standpoint of like evaluating video game art, I would intuitively consider this better art than this, right? Because this is uh, drab. This is just a sheer face. There's not a whole lot going on here. It's blocky. It's low res, etc., etc., etc. I saw that message about Kakuzu versus Minato. I am thoroughly triggered, especially after listening to those terrible debates that happened recently. Thank you for triggering me. I will talk more about that on Sunday. um, but yeah, but so this is like totally better, right? Yeah, but it's also telling a completely different story, right? This, regardless of how you feel about like if this is a better work of art than this, the story that this tells, unintentionally or otherwise, is that there isn't a whole lot of life and vegetation here, right? This is a sheer cliff face, I guess you could call it. This is a like, I don't know. It's kind of inhospitable. It's very rugged. It's very sparse. Compare that to this, right? Not only is there much more like nuance in the rock itself, so to speak, that there's more detail, there's more crevices and stuff like that, but there's also more life. There's different types of life, and again, there's nothing like this lichen or moss or whatever it is, plus the hanging vines, plus the trees, right? It feels much more like colorful and vibrant and alive, and there's different forms of life. Same thing over here, right? On the beach, they decided to change this patch of beach to add some color and add in
Okay,
some.
let's move out.
Yeah, shush,
Let's go find the map room that
yes,
will
I
show us
will.
the location of Halo's
Um,
control center.
you know, to add a little bit more color, and it looks better, right? I think it actually does, but also it's changing the story. Look at the overall beach layout. I think that they actually made a really great effort to try to imply paths that you should travel on, and then paths which would be more like, or like, they tried to demarcate, like, okay, these are the more open areas that you'll be able to run through, and then these are the areas with more cover, right? So and it kind of supports the gameplay experience of, okay, they're these little Covenant guys, they're going to be hiding behind cover. You might want to take cover too. Okay, so you would go to the place where it's a little darker, the grass is a little darker, you feel like you're hunkering down more. And then if you want to be, running around, okay, where you're going to be a little bit more exposed, you're out here in this open area with this wide channel. I think that actually works quite well. And also, it's a very different vibe, right? Very different feeling. So I I wonder sometimes. I wonder sometimes if this actually is better. And the reason why I say I wonder versus making it more declarative is because it really, like, I think genuinely depends on our goals as developers, like what kind of story that we want to tell. I think that, like, if I remember correctly, some of the concept art from Halo 1, like the initial concept art, looked a lot more like this. And so when the game first came out, it was like, okay, finally, now we get to see the Halo that we've always envisioned. Like, this was the original vision of the creators. And this is a tricky thing because I think that, like, the original vision, like the initial, like, concept should be honored. And if you have a chance to bring that to life in a way that you didn't before, that's great in theory. But at the end of the day, this exists, and like regardless of how we got here as an industry, as a development studio, whatever, like we got here, and this tells its story. This art stands on its own, and so coming at this from a standpoint of like however many years later, being like we can improve this, you have to be very clear and very careful about what exactly you mean by improve. There's also a couple of things here that like do have gameplay implications. So let's take a look. I know it's I promise this is gonna go somewhere, right? So let's take a look at this rock, for example. Now it's a pretty simple, nondescript bit of cover, I guess you could say. Probably doesn't have a very complex collision, maybe complex-ish for the time. It's probably just got like a kind of cylinder or something on it to make sure that it collides with bullets. Let's see how precise it is. So I can get pretty close to it without hitting it, but once I get, like, technically speaking, based on my crosshairs, you might expect the bullet to go by, but it's hitting the collision. So I think, yeah, the collision sphere is actually like not super, or the collision mesh is not like super precise and wrapping it like perfectly. That's totally fine. Now let's see what happens if we switch to the newer graphics, right? Okay, suddenly there's a big hole here, and if I shoot in the hole, notice that it's sparking. So a couple of things. First of all, like the spark is hitting right there. It's hitting. So what happened there is that they said, okay, we want to. Again, like I'm not trying to pick on the developers who made the remaster or whatever, but they looked at this rock and they said this rock could look better if it was more gnarled and it had more like nuance and complexity to it or whatever. It just feels like it could have some more moss on it. It could be prettier and more modern. But the problem is that even if this is a tiny little thing, even if you think it doesn't matter, it does factually change the tactical landscape because it is smaller, it's more compact, and it has a hole inside of it. So if an enemy is over here and is poking out from beside the hole, you might be able to see it, whereas if they were behind this one, you know, that little change, you know, imagine there's a guy right there, right, that's coming up from the other side of the rock. Now I can't see him, now I can, right? And fair enough if you really want to change that, if you really want to make this rock more complex or whatever, but you have to fix the collision. Like, this is not okay. It's, like, giving you the wrong information. This is fine. It's not super precise. Like, technically speaking, that's, like, it's still a little too close, right? But if you go back to this is, like, way off. So, did they really make it better? I don't think so in this particular instance. And there's one more thing I'll talk about for now, and then I'll get back to chat, which is this. Here's another example. So let's take a look at this effect over here. It's actually very nice. It's very lovely. It reminds me of one of those little like plasma balls that you would, you know, see in like gift shops, like a Spencer's gift shop or something like that, if you know what I'm talking about, where they're just like these little plastic orbs with what looks like lightning kind of coursing through it, and if you touch the orb, the lightning will dance over to and like quote unquote connect to your fingers, right? I'm sure you guys have seen those in like joke shops or whatever. Looks really nice, really good effect. Shout out to the artist who did this. You did a great job. Now let's switch back. Okay, so this is more rudimentary. It's more basic. I think this actually does look more like those balls because you do have like the little, you know, squirming squiggly elements. I don't know how else to put it. And you can see it's really rough around the edges. You can see like the aliasing or the blocking of the texture over here. It's not great by modern standards, but notice how you can very clearly see based on like the additional like the opacity of the shield that you can tell that by the silhouette that it's creating that it's a little bit like it makes everything a little bit lighter, a little bit brighter, so that it stands out and carves out its own like imagery from the background. And it's very clear that like you can still see through it and see everything that's happening beyond it, but also very intuitively understand that like, okay, there's still something different about this that like differentiates this space from this space. Even just looking at this comm crate over here, right? Like it looks a bit brighter. It looks like it's almost being like enhanced by the shield, but you can still see through it perfectly fine. What about this one? Not so much, right? Got a whole lot more visual noise. You can still see through it. Like, it's still parsable, but it's also, like, it's not the same. Same thing with this, right? The initial, like, damage that you do to the shield makes it glow bright red, versus this, okay, a little pink, and it slowly goes to red. Not a bug, not a problem, not a design fail or anything like that, but it is different, and it does change the overall experience of the game. So I think it's important to be very mindful of those things, and not just to take it for a given that because it's prettier or fancier or more intricate that it's necessarily better. And we can talk about this as well once I start once I catch up with chat. So let's see. Let's see. Yeah, no, I've definitely been hard. Been trying to get into drawing, trying to refine faces at the moment. Oh, that's nice. That's really cool. I'm kind of jealous of y'all's artistic skills because I really genuinely wish that I could draw, and I've tried to like take drawing courses and teach myself, but I've just never really been able to pull it off. It never like quite made sense to me, I guess. And I could just never like. It's just a skill that I was never really able to cultivate. So I really respect anybody with like artistic talent. Let's see. Exchange drawings. Yeah. Oh, so Kakuzu versus Minato. We talk about that more on Sunday. But I don't. I think that there are things Kakuzu can do to like be relevant in that fight, but I don't see how he's beating Minato. I mean, just really quickly, like he lost to Naruto, and Naruto has to go through several orders, like several training arcs to get up to Minato's level. Granted, Rasen Shuriken beats base Rasengan, but that's not all that Minato has in his arsenal, right? So, I mean, like, I don't... Could Kakuzu potentially do things that could hurt Minato? Sure, absolutely. I mean, they are both individuals who are trained killers who fight for a living. I think that they are both capable of harming each other, especially insert obligatory reference to Wood Splinter here, right? But at the same time, it's like, no, Kakuzu's not beating him, in my opinion. Sasori versus Kakuzu. Sasori wins. I think so. Kakuzu is very clear that he, when he uses Diamond Morph to block Ebony Blade, he's very clear that like he doesn't want to get hit by poison. It's something that's, well, actually, let me rephrase that. It's not actually all that clear in the manga, right? But the data book explains that the Ebony Blade is coated in a very potent poison, and Kakuzu himself says like he recognizes it in the manga, and he's like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with that, and so he hardens up. And then with that additional context, as it's explained, it's like, okay, and it makes a little bit more sense now, right? So I think that like Sasori has plenty of opportunities to poison him, and especially again, like this isn't the Naruto stream, so I don't want to get too deep into it, but I think that that absolutely there's a win con there. The older graphics seem more ominous. Yeah, for sure. There's something a little bit more haunting about this, and even this too. Like the idea that there's nothing inherently wrong with making the sky cloudier, I guess, but I feel like they added the cloud cover in order to make things seem like more complex and intricate or whatever. But at the same time, it's like you're covering up the planet, you're covering up the moon. There's so much stuff that's just obfuscated by these clouds. It's like what are we really adding to the storytelling here? I don't think so. I think that like it always sounds pretentious when I say this, but I think like video games are a storytelling medium, and I think the storytelling should come first. That being said, one little addition that I do like is, again, like Halo lore heads, you will have to tell me if you think that this is a fair decision that was made based on like how these weapons are actually, designed and how they function within like the Covenant lore. But I like the fact that they added a little bit of an electrical spark there, right? So you'll notice that there's like a little plasma arc that is going between the two parts of the weapon. That's really cool. That is something that was not present here, and so I like that addition. However, again, like, just keep in mind that when you make a change like that, you are affecting the storytelling. There is a reason. Like, if we suspend our disbelief for a second, and we pretend like this universe does actually exist, like the Halo universe does actually exist, right? Then the Covenant in this world designed this weapon here, the original weapon, with this yellow shit in the middle and those glowing crystals or whatever they are for a reason. And then they designed this with the little spark in the middle for a reason. What was the reason for each thing? There is a different story that is being told. And so if your reason, if you want to change it, you can. If you want to refresh it and innovate, you can. But understand that if you do that, you are changing the story that's being told about the origins and functionality of this weapon. So it's important to ask why. Like, are we genuinely actually increasing the storytelling here, or are we just adding shit? Let's take a look at the overheat as well. Now, we still have that same exact glyph, right? That the symbol that like indicates that the weapon is heating up. But look at how it almost feels like they pushed it out of the way to make room to show off more of the weapon. And look, I fucking love this thing. It looks so fucking cool. It's like shiny, the light's reflecting off of it. You can see those hexagons. There's like wear and tear. There's schmutz and grime on it. It looks really fucking cool. I wish I had like this as a prop. I would probably prefer to have this as a prop than this, just in terms of like having cool shit. But at the same time, look at how big that fucking, like heat indicator is. The game doesn't have to explain it to you, right? You don't have to have any tutorial message pop up and be like, Mega Man, your thing's overheating or whatever. But at the same time, like, the fact that it gets pushed to this little, to a little, it's sort of like relegated to the tip of the weapon, changes things. Not only does it change the readability for the player, which granted, it's still like right up in your face, you can still see it just fine, but not as clearly. It also changes the narrative of the weapon, right? Because like here, it's like right up in your face. Here, it feels like much more distant, and that means that the Covenant designed it differently for some reason. So we're going to talk about the sound a little bit too, but let me catch up on chat because I see a lot of cool messages coming in. I want to make sure I don't ignore you guys, so bear with me 1 second here. Let's see. All that improvement in graphics and still doesn't capture the feeling the old game did. Yeah, it's very different, and that's the thing. Like, part of what makes video games so compelling is the way that they make you feel, and I think that's kind of esoteric. It's kind of abstract, so it's hard to nail. But it's so important. And if you're like trying to innovate on a game and refresh it, you have to figure out and understand what that feeling is and how it was achieved to be able to replicate it. And spoiler alert, it's not going to be replicatable with just like adding more and more stuff on it. I think the refrain that we hear is when you remaster or remake a game, you want to make people feel the way they felt when they played it for the first time 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? Because if you played if you played Ocarina of Time, for example, when you were a kid, or even before you played like the more recent versions, remasters or whatever, then comparing it to something like Breath of the Wild, graphically speaking, it's kind of hard. Like, I was just talking to Saria about this earlier today, right? That, like, it's kind of hard to go back to a game like that and play it from a modern gamer's perspective because everything looks so rough. But this, sorry, I'm failing at my words. That, like, if you just paint over everything, you're going to wind up using different hues, different luminosity, different like things are going to change. The remaster on 3DS feels very different. There's something about it that just doesn't quite feel right, especially for Majora's Mask. And now they're doing it again, and I'm like, I don't want this. Like, the game already exists. It's already great. You can already like download a very effective emulation of the game in HD. There's no reason, or purchase it obviously. There's no reason to do this other than to keep dumping more paint on it, but sooner or later you just wind up with like a big paint glob, and it's not fun anymore. Let's see, Soldier Boy versus Homelander. Well, not to spoil anything, but I think that, well, no, yeah, you're right. I think extreme diff is appropriate. I think that it's like if they fight 10 times from fresh, then Homelander would win like 5.5 times, or like, sorry, I'm saying it wrong because I'm getting distracted. I think that Soldier Boy would win more often than Homelander would, but Homelander definitely has win cons, right? And so does Soldier Boy. It just depends on whether or not he can get off the like nuke anti-superpower blast thing. Let's see. Crossverse wise, how impressive is the Naruto versus poison scaling? That would be a really, really interesting topic for a video, I think. I might have to write that down because um, poison, I don't think it's really explained super well how poison in Naruto works, and poison is one of those things that's just like it's the green magic shit that does um, damage over time in video games, right? Or whatnot. It's the mechanisms of poison are actually not something that I'm even personally all that aware of. I know how like venom causes damage to your cells, but certain types of venom, like I know some of their functions, but like poison in general can mean such a broad range of things. Technically speaking, I think what Sasori uses is venom more so than poison, because I think poison has to be ingested, but I might be making that up. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, that could be a very interesting topic. I think that basically poison is one of those things where it's like it is in the same way that like fire isn't a thing really. Like I was thinking about talking to Captain Cat about this at some point, based on one of the videos that he did. But like fire isn't an object; it's not an entity, right? It is a visual effect that we see, almost like an optical illusion that we see, of a distortion of light that is brought on by a chemical process. It's what we see and experience and feel as a result of a chemical reaction. So saying that something is like a fire is kind of weird, and saying that like, well, how far does fire from Naruto scale into other verses? I think that was the topic, right? It was, sorry if I'm getting the names wrong, it was like the Logias from One Piece being compared to the fire that burns Jigen that Kashinkoji summons, right? Stuff like that. And personally, I'm like, well, fire is just a chemical process. So when you say like how far does the fire in Naruto scale, if you're talking about natural fire, it depends entirely on the chemical process that's occurring and how much energy is being released. For stuff like Amaterasu, it's different because, you know, that's chakra based, so that might have different properties. But for natural fire, yeah, that's, you know. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So I think it really would just scale to the biology of the people who are receiving it. Basically, take Goku for example, right? Assuming his internal organs work the same way that the internal organs of human beings work, like his liver works the same way, his pancreas works the same way, shit like that, right? Then if a poison affects human being cells, unless he has some sort of extra regeneration or something like that, then yeah, I think that it would affect him also. Because again, like, I have to research this. Don't quote me on any of this. Please don't quote me on this. But like, I think the way that poison works is essentially like it will, some poisons anyway. There will be molecules in the poison that basically like get into your cells, and there are like receptors on your cells that are normally used to connect to other molecules that perform bodily functions. So for example, again, I'm sorry, my biology knowledge is really outdated, but something like, you know, normally you would have something cross the phospholipid layer of the cell, cross that membrane by having a molecule interface with one of the channels on the cell. The molecule slots in, the channel activates, and then it sends shit back and forth within the cell, right? So like potassium and sodium can be set to flow in and out of the cell based on like a protein attaching to a receptor on the outside of the cell, something like that. So what a poison can do is it can take the place of that protein, but instead just kind of stick there and refuse to leave, so that like your cell will go to release the sodium or the potassium or whatever else, but then instead of then releasing the protein and then stopping, it'll just stay there and it'll continue hemorrhaging the stuff in the cell, and the cell itself will basically just like kill itself. It will just like hemorrhage the nutrients that it needs, or even like the phospholipid bilayer will break down and the interior of the cell's contents will be disgorged, and then it just like breaks apart. So it's not like it's something that attaches to things inside you on a very, very minute level, and then like causes those things to go into overdrive and just break fundamentally. So I think that, like, the poisons that we encounter in Naruto, funny enough, I don't think are ever described as being like, you know, chakra-enhanced poisons, are there? There's no poison jutsu, funny enough. If there's a poison jutsu, it's just like, I don't know, maybe Temari uses her wind to scatter a poison gas or something like that. But there is no, like, you know, like in Dark Souls, there's, or Elden Ring, there's like a toxic spray spell and shit like that. I don't think there's anything like that in Naruto. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I think poison would be a really interesting topic to go on, because it's one of those things where, or to speak on, because I think it would be, you know, a useful learning opportunity for myself as well, to just talk about how poison works in general, do a little research, and kind of talk about that. Yeah, okay. I'm also realizing that my mouse sensitivity is like crazy high for me. But yeah. Okay. Oh, I probably shouldn't have set you two on each other. Sorry about that. But let me see. All the improvement in graphics and doesn't still capture the feeling. Yeah, we talked about that. Itachi versus Patrick Jane, not smarting. Itachi, no diffs. I will leave that up to you two to decide. Kodo plan was so good that even if it didn't work, how it went down apparently makes him even more of a genius. The Kodo Matsukami plan from Itachi. So this is something that I actually am sort of embarrassed that I don't know. Did Itachi actually use Kodo Matsukami on Sasuke, or was he just sort of threatening to do so? Or are you talking about, like, Shisui's intention of using it during the coup to prevent the coup from happening? I'm not sure, but, like, yeah, feel free to elaborate on that. Jingami says, if I'm being honest, whenever people say things that relate to the complimenting my art, I'm not sure how to take those. I have trouble. Oh, dude, I'm the same way. I really don't, I can kind of be very sketchy about compliments too. So feel free to, or like, just feel validated. I don't want to ever pressure you, or make you feel like the spotlight is on you if you don't want it to be. Like, I get the same way, especially about, like, music I've composed before. I'm always torn between, like, wanting to share it with people, but then also, like, not wanting anybody to hear it. And then if people are like, hey, it's really good, I'm like, what do you mean it's really good? I know there's something wrong with it. What are you hiding? Why are you being so nice, right? It's just like, art is weird. So no worries, no judgment. Michael says, if you even just doodle habitually, even something rough or abstract, that can go ways into improving imagination, creativity. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think it's probably safe to say that, you know, any form of art is going to have a component of skill and a component of talent. And to whatever extent you think those two things are separate or intertwined, I'm sure that there's a healthy debate to be had on that subject. But the skill component is something that I think you, like most people, should be able to nurture with enough practice. Now, perhaps it's naive of me to say that, because I haven't tried to do so. I haven't really done the research on that. But I would like to think that even if you are quote-unquote talentless, if you practice, you should be able to develop a rudimentary art, like at least some basic art skills. You know, if you have quote-unquote no musical talent, but you practice the piano for an hour a day for a year, you're going to be better at it by the end of it, right? I would say so. Okay, I have a lot of catching up to do, sorry. Kakuzu would whoop Naruto in a 1v1 back then. Yes, I agree. Not Sage Naruto. Sage Naruto would clean him up, but base Naruto, like the one that was just learning the Rasen Shuriken and hadn't perfected it. I mean, like, well, that's the thing. Like, if he had connected with Kakuzu on that first attack, he probably would have killed those two hearts. But Kakuzu had already been fighting and lost two of his hearts, and, like, Naruto couldn't fire off all that many Rasen Shuriken before getting fatigued and stuff, so I think it would be very close. Naruto has a win con. Like, he could do it, but, I mean, like, if Kakuzu's entire attention with all five of his hearts and shit, or just, like, everything is focused on Naruto, I don't think so. I think he will have a very slim margin in which to win. That being said, that's kind of what Naruto does, right? Like, if you put Naruto stats-wise up against, like, Shukaku, there's no way he's winning. If you put Naruto stats-wise and feats-wise and jutsu-wise up against Neji, there's no way he's winning. But he pulls out the win anyway. And that's what kind of makes his character so compelling, right? Is that, well, part of it is that he can pull these incredible wins out even when the odds are stacked against him. Even when he himself says, like, I came in here fully prepared to lose, right? So I think that's worth noting. I did want to check out the sound here. Yeah, I'll comment on the sound before proceeding much further. But yeah, let me finish catching up on chat. I do appreciate the dialogue. Sorry if I'm spacing out a little too much over here. Good enough to know Diff Gojo. Does Noodles have Sasori or Kakuzu above in a fight? Oh, I don't know, honestly. I think he would probably, if I had to guess, I think he would just say Kakuzu because he puts Kakuzu above Minato and above, like, Pain. But one thing that I will give the motherfucker credit for is that he did acknowledge that, like, matchups in Naruto are not, like, they're not, like, necessarily linear, in terms of, you know, like Dragon Ball power levels or whatever. There can be like rock paper scissors type matchups where like asymmetries can be present. Yeah, I do think matchup matters quite a lot. Like we talked about Sasuke and Deidara before, and how that matchup would have gone down differently if Sasuke didn't have like lightning style. Like even if he had all of his jutsus exactly, Jesus Christ, jutsu exactly the same. If they didn't have a lightning property to them to negate Datara's earth stuff, his clay, then that fight would have gone down way differently. So typing advantages matchups do play a big role, and I don't think it's necessarily linear. But yeah, I personally I would say Kakuzu could take it, but I don't know what he would say. Honestly, sometimes I'll doubt my intelligence of writing manga. Hey, I think that it's healthy to have a little bit of self-doubt, you know, not to the point of self-deprecation, but you know, being humble is important. It can be a very good attribute to have because it keeps you growing. But don't be down on yourself. You know, you keep working at it. Shinigami says one time I was thinking, wait, is this sequence? Does it feel like cause and effect, rather than okay, so this happens, but then these things happen, which requires a character? Oh yeah, totally. I mean, like, if I understand what you're saying, then it can be very easy and natural and normal to get kind of like caught up in or bogged down with details like that. And like sometimes when I'm working on stuff of that nature, like you can feel like my head is swimming, just trying to keep all the details in place. I'm actually gonna like adjust my sensitivity 1 second. Where are we? Yeah, mouse sensitivity. This should be lower. 1.2. Save settings. Okay. That feels better. Okay. What were you saying about... Oh, Michael said, Ryomen, come on. What are you guys referring to? I think I lost the thread there. To do this, but it results in the context because of the complication of surrounding context. Oh, no, that makes sense. Same with my designs. Some love how I draw my female characters. Sometimes I think she could be cuter, or with the guys, is he handsome? Or what looks good and more. I do get mad when it doesn't work out, but when it does, I'm not sure how to take a compliment. Yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. I don't know what Ryomen was referring to with the actual standards there, but again, let's try to keep it friendly. I know you guys might have some disagreements. That's totally fine. We're just try and be cordial to one another. For what it's worth, the way that I think of things, Ryomen, is like when I look at a character, I'm not really concerned with whether or not they could or should be more attractive, unless a specific type of physical attraction is like a deliberate part of their design. And given also that like attraction is totally subjective and it changes from person to person and culture to culture, but if you're talking about like making a character fit a specific version of attractiveness, a specific like aesthetic or whatever, then to me I take a very functional approach, right? Like if you have a character who is a ballroom dancer who's like really great at like expressive fluid motion and has like that sort of training, like there are sword wielding characters in Elden Ring that have that backstory, right? I think it makes sense to give them a seductive dress, maybe like expose some cleavage, maybe like you do some show butting or whatever, right? Like some of those terms have derogatory contexts, and sometimes I would agree, but like if part of their character design, if part of their narrative and their personality is that they are seductive and lithe and flexible and quick, then and their sexuality or their sensuality rather is part of their narrative, part of their character, then I think their design should reflect that. I think that like Aphrodite in Hades is a really good example of this, right? Like Aphrodite is the goddess of love, fertility, sex, right? If I'm remembering correctly. Greek mythology heads there, of course, can like feel free to correct me. But like she's associated with those sorts of things, so it makes sense that she's basically like completely naked in that game. It doesn't strike me as being like exploitative or anything. That is who she is. She should be designed that way because that's her like her lore, right? So it really just depends on whether or not your character is serving the function that you want them to, and whether their design, their aesthetic, or whatever is telling the story. Take a moment, by the way, before I continue with chat, to just put a pin in this mentally. Think about like how different this is from this, and also like the different storytelling that's taking place. Like somebody looked at these indentations, like that sort of frame, and decided that should be a door. Or like it looks like a door, a portal of some sort, right? Somebody decided to add this electric looking or like this glowing light element. Now, do I think that this floor looks better than this? Sorta. I mean, it's more high res, it's more intricate, it has more going on, but like also it's very fucking different, right? Like look at this. These are basically two completely different structures. Also, look at, I'm just noticing now, like the size of the ring, the way that it's framed, the angle that it's at, and like how many trees are in the way of it. This changes the storytelling a lot too, right? There's so much more clutter placed in here. I will say that I think the lighting overall looks better in some instances. Like it's more balanced. It feels a little bit more natural. Also because like they're doing more like real time and dynamic lighting with the trees and stuff like that. Like you can see that there's far many more shadows being cast around the environment compared to this, where there are some obviously, but they're blockier, they're lower res. The trees here aren't, they are animating slightly, but obviously like they're much more you know, bouncy over here. For what it's worth though, like a bouncier tree means more wind, and so it's like I wonder, did they think that like did they make the choice of like adding more, like did they think about the implications of adding more wind? Let's listen to the audio actually. One second. This is a remaster, obviously. And now the original. It'll take a sec for the looping sounds to refresh. Yeah, okay, so it's still playing the new assets, I think. So I'll have to give it a minute. That's the one caveat of the remake, is that, or of the like tabbing back and forth between the different versions of the sounds, is that they don't necessarily switch immediately. You know what I mean? If a sound that is playing on a loop, it will have to finish the loop before it like checks to see if it should switch to the different version. And for ambient files, sometimes those sounds can be like 30 seconds to multiple minutes long. Oh wait, hang on. I did hear something change. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I think the loop just changed. Yeah, I'll have to go back and listen to it because I'm not 100% confident that the loop is changing correctly, or like that I'm perceiving the correct like transition point. But I do think that they actually were thoughtful about that, and the audio team added in more wind to the ambient soundscape compared to the original to reinforce the fact that there's more wind moving through the trees. And I think it's actually supported by their, well, it's kind of hard to tell here because of the lack of motion in the trees, in the sky, but I think this is supported by the clouds as well. So, you know, I'm actually like appreciative of stuff like that. If it's a broad change that affects multiple aspects of the game, and you are considering that, like as long as you're planning for it, as long as you're thinking about the like how shit fits in with the world overall, that makes sense. And I promise I will get back to chat in a second here, but like I did also want to take a moment and like just look at how the lighting and the glowing of the particles affects this combat encounter, right? So like compare that to this. Okay, we can still see the shields clearly, but it's also like the shield itself is less, I don't know, this version looks more like kind of a weird alien eye. This one just kind of looks flat and very direct. The projectiles, because the environment is quote-unquote worse lit, like there's less lighting in it, the shields and the projectiles are actually standing out much more clearly, whereas with this, I mean, you can still make them out, but it's like, they kind of like almost weirdly artificially stand out from the environment in a way that, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like, it feels like it doesn't belong quite as much. And the little globs of energy coming in are like easier to perceive and react to, even though the lighting is worse, because like, yeah, with how bright it is, it's kind of harder to see in contrast those little particles coming in, right? It just sometimes less is more. Even the shield on the elites too. Let me let it recharge actually, but I think it's actually like much clearer. I mean, look at that. Like, at a certain point, these are two completely different things, right? Like the remake shield versus the OG. Let me see about the shield. Oh, that is kind of cool. They have like a little heat shimmer distortion effect in the air. Like compared to this, like there's just so much more data that the player is getting from this, right? Anyway, okay, so let's go back to chat for a minute. Sequence. Yeah, we went over the sequence things. I don't know what you guys are talking about with the standards, but I'll leave you to sort that out. Oh, I'm more intelligent than you, as you seemingly admitted. Let's not get into that. I don't think it really helps anybody to make those kinds of comparisons. Homelander mid diffs. It's funny. I think. Well, here's the thing, right? I wasn't thinking about like flight. I was just thinking about them in like a straight up brawl. Flight is such a massive fucking advantage, and I think Homelander also has like massive advantages in speed as well. So if he fights optimally, I think he is like definitely has more advantages than Soldier Boy does. But the problem is that like in character, he lets his temper and his ego get the better of him. He flies into fits of rage. He's not a very like intelligent tactical fighter, right? So Soldier Boy just might have more experience with the real thing and be able to leverage that against him. And he does have like a very, very strong win con. It's just a matter of whether or not he can pull it off. Kind of like the Rasen Shuriken, right? Oh, hey there, Saria. I'm seeing that you've added some comments. I'll be sure to catch up with you real quick. Hope you're doing well. Let me see. Homelander versus Bombsight. I actually don't like. I know they talked about Bombsight a whole bunch, but I literally can't remember him in my head. I don't remember what he looks like or what he does. Oh, wait. No, I do. He's the guy who brings the V1, right? I don't really remember his abilities very clearly. Anyway, I'll take your word for it. I haven't seen this kind of gaslight. Is that like a Sukuna reference? I mean, I know the Heian era was its own thing, but yeah. I see almost no way for Oh my god, dude, why are words hard? I see almost no way for Homelander to beat Bombsight against Soldier Boy. He has a good chance. That's interesting. Interesting that you would scale that so high. I'm remembering the character more now, but I need to go back and re-examine that for sure. T1 BS, tier 1 bullshit. Is that what you guys are saying? I'm reading Tomodachi Game, and this is one of the dirtiest manga of all time. I will also take your word for that. Definitely, if that's the case, definitely not something we'll review on stream together, but I hope you enjoyed. Soldier Boy slams Bombsight for sure. Yuichi slams L. Light slams both. A lot of slamming going on. I'll have to take your word for that too. I got hit with 3 chapters in a row of partial nudity. Sometimes exposition happens, and the author decided to have camera focus on the women's chest. Oh, I gotcha. Then I can go on. Yeah, that makes sense. Didn't Shizune have poison breath that she used against Kabuto? I think you are right, Michael. Sorry it took me a long time to respond to that, by the way. But yeah, I think you are correct. She definitely has poison, like the little poison needles that she shoots out against Kabuto, right? And then he blocks them with his forehead protector. I definitely know that there's like some sort of poison gas thing. You're right about that. So it might actually be that she does have a poison jutsu. I could be wrong about that. Let's see. Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, catching up. Sorry now. I mean, Ocarina of Time, like I've said, this new version isn't for the older generation. It's made with the Wild Era fans in mind. They're making this as the new definitive way for the new generation. It doesn't take from away from Ocarina because it's still there. In fact, it's on the Switch too if you want to play the original. Ocarina has been on every home Nintendo console since its release. Yeah. So let me maybe finish what you said before I respond because I want to make sure I'm not like cutting you off, so to speak. Where the fuck did the grenade go? Yeah. Let me turn the music down a little bit because I want to be able to continue having conversations with you, and the music is distracting. Yeah, so Saria then says, GameCube, Wii U, Switch, Switch 2, it had a remake on the 3DS where they kept everything the same, just made it prettier. This version is for the Wild Era fans. This is for modern fandom because modern fandom doesn't want to go back and play Ocarina because of the limitations. They want the player expression we've been given in the Wild games and Echoes of Wisdom, and that's fair. It's fair to give us that because Ocarina is the most important game in the franchise when it comes to the lore, so going back and rebuilding it from the ground in a way modern fandom want to actually play it, that's awesome. The old generation doesn't want to participate, that's okay because this isn't aimed for that generation. Every other port and remake was. This is for the new generation. So I'll start off by saying that I think your point is valid and I think doesn't get enough like I think that folks from my generation tend to feel like everything should be made for us, and we tend to be very cagey about like, well, we grew up with X, Y, or Z thing, therefore it belongs to us, therefore nobody else gets to have it or touch it or like, change it. And art is mutable. Art is like language is like constantly evolving, and people are going to have different responses and reactions to things over time. And like, I don't think you can claim ownership in that way. I don't think that really works. I don't really support that. However, I can see the same arguments being made for Silent Hill 2 and the Silent Hill 2 remake, right? And like you could say no, like Silent Hill 2 has existed for all this time, and like you can, I mean, it's obviously not a great analogy because with Silent Hill 2, you can like it's hard to find an original copy and play it in the original state, right? That's part of what complicates it. But let's just say that wasn't the case. So you could find Silent Hill 2 wherever. You can make the argument that like newer generations of players don't want to go back and play like this old ass, crusty ass, ugly looking game, but and therefore when the remake came out, like this remake is specifically for the newer generation. But and I don't have a problem with that per se. But the thing is, the Silent Hill 2 remake, although it is a very good game in and of its own right, it's not Silent Hill 2, right? It doesn't bill itself as a remake. It doesn't say like this is like Silent Hill 2 Fractured Psyche or Silent Hill 2 The Legacy of James Dunderhead. It's just Silent Hill 2. And so it will eventually, however many generations it takes, it will eventually supplant the original. And I think that's a problem because rather than preserving the legacy of the other one, it's just like, well, we're done with that now, we're moving on, we're getting rid of it. And I think that it would be entirely possible to have a game come out that is spiritually a spiritual successor to Ocarina and capture that overall experience in the overall narrative and even maybe even go over some of the lore, but still be different enough to kind of stand on its own without like overwriting the original Ocarina. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about another title, a game coming out with the same title that is being treated as like the new or the definitive version that is then causing a rift between the original and the new one. And I think that yeah, like modern like Fortnite jockeys probably sorry, that sounded mean. I play Fortnite in the past and I've enjoyed it, and I shouldn't be derogatory like that. I apologize. But let's just say like Zoomers who are really into playing high intensity, immediate like reward reinforcement games, mobile games, stuff like that. They won't have the patience to go back to something as outdated as Ocarina. Well, maybe then like they should get out of their comfort zone a little bit more. Like maybe we should find ways to encourage people to go back and enjoy the classics like Halo. as opposed to just saying like, okay, well, that is for this group of people, and then this new thing will be for the next group of people. I don't know, something about that, it feels like, also from a business standpoint, it's like, cool, you already made that game, right? That game was already made, it already came out, and you've re-released it like dozens of times, so maybe leave it the fuck alone, right? Like, if you want to make something for a new generation with new sensibilities, a new version, then just do that. Like, you don't have to go back and fuck with something that already exists. So, I, the fact that I prefaced my agreement with you and then said here are the things that I disagree with, like, those two things don't cancel each other out, right? Hope you understand that. Those are just two different sides of the coin. I personally, my concern is like, on the one hand, yes, I think it's a great opportunity to introduce the game to a new generation of players. I just don't want that to come at the expense of the distancing from, or like being embarrassed about, or moving away from, or whatever, the original. And I think you're probably right, but I'm resistant to the implication that like modern gamers wouldn't be willing to even try it, right? Like, when they get, maybe like an 8-year-old kid who plays Roblox and nothing else might not want to, but give that person 10 years, you know, they now have a chance to play Ocarina of Time, and so they're like, okay, well, like, I don't know, I'm like 15, 20, 25, I've heard about this game called Ocarina of Time, I want to go check it out, so I Google Ocarina of Time, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to get the first one that comes up, the most recent one, I'm going to assume that this is probably like the representative one or whatever, and then they wind up playing the new version, which is fundamentally different. I think that that person has lost a little bit of something. They're not really experiencing the true legacy of the thing. But yeah, that's, I don't know, like, retroactively understand that I feel very strongly about this topic, and I am in no way trying to like mansplain to you like how remakes need to work or anything like that, right? So hopefully that feels fair. Let's see. Shinigami says his intentions of using the Kodo on Sasuke, but because of how the plot went, he used it on himself. Oh, with the bird. Yeah. To break out of the Edo Tensei. Right. Okay. Which, by the way, doesn't the fact that the plan went outside of his intended outcome mean that the plan would have failed? I think there are a lot of plans that kind of wound up not really working out in Naruto. I am just kind of noticing, though, a little bit of a graphical quirk where you see how, like, there's a layer of moving waves, like an animated texture or whatever it is, that are propagating forward from about this point. But then I think, oh, well, no, it's just hard to see. Okay, the waves are dynamic. The water is dynamic. It's just once you get to a certain point, it's really hard to see it. It's probably just a level of detail, like optimization thing. Let's see. What likelihood was there for Kabuto reviving Itachi with Edo Tensei? Oh yeah, I see. Like, in terms of him planning ahead for that makes sense. Kakuzu is over Sage Naruto. KCM. I don't agree with that at all. No. I mean, like, look, factually speaking, Naruto can make shadow clones in KCM and in base and in Sage mode, right? So he was able to beat him with a weaker, less consistent, handheld only version of the Rasen Shuriken with 3 shadow clones, and he would have beaten him on that first, like, literally on the first try, if it wasn't for the fact that that the Rasen fizzled out. So, like, you're talking about even stronger versions. Again, like, I have to remember that we're talking about a full Kakuzu with his full focus on Naruto. That there might be, I might be being a little unfair with Sage, but also I think, or Sage mode specifically. But also, I mean, like, I think he gets like exponentially stronger when he's in Sage mode. So, like, Sage mode sensory and durability and everything, like, yeah, I disagree, but I think you probably have some win cons. Itachi wouldn't predict that. Yeah, I mean, the Edo Tensei prediction stuff, you're right, that is pretty, it's such an outlier. I don't think he could have possibly seen it coming. The argument is that it's meant to retroactively make Itachi more of a genius, but even without that, the plan was flawed to begin with. I see. Oh, yeah. So they're trying to, like, expand on the notion that Itachi was a genius by adding this additional, like, retconned layer into the plot. That makes sense. Epsilon says, "What type of music do you compose?" Oh, yeah, I play guitar mostly, but I also play a little cello. And I used to really like composing like ambient noise and chiptune. So I have some stuff that I performed a long time ago, and I do genuinely really enjoy it. It's just like also feel really self conscious about it because like the way that I make that music is very. It'll sound kind of pretentious, but hear me out. Like kind of anarchic, however you say that. In that when I grew up like playing like learning how to play music in a very regimented, very formal way, and so when I discovered like noise and punk and stuff, and like heavy metal, I went in a real like aggressive and abstract place with it where I was just like venting a lot of stuff, and so it feels very personal and very like raw and very like vulnerable, I guess. Um, when I release music like that, because I kind of it's like one of the few areas in my life where I kind of just let myself go artistically with like fewer inhibitions while I'm making the stuff. But then when I go to release it, like all those inhibitions come back, and I was like, ah, it's not good enough. Like I have to change this, change that, and so it's a constant struggle between like wanting to just give myself the permission to create freely, but also wanting to, like having those paradigms of how to create art correctly stuck in my head. Um, let's see. It doesn't make him smarter because it gives him one more good feat, maybe. Um, you gave Naruto Shisui's eye a high target threat to the Akatsuki. Yes, good point. Do I need to mention when Naruto was at Pain's mercy? If it weren't Hinata, he would have been captured. True, but of course, there's some additional complexity there. I think with the uh, the layers of like Itachi's deception. Like, there's so much going on there, right? Virgin Halo versus Chad TF2. Dude, I think we talked about this last stream, right? Like I really love TF2. I tried to get good at that game. Hammond's skull. Oh, it must have been like right over there. Cool. Um, so yeah, but I was pretty terrible at it. Um, and I wound up just either being like a pocket medic or like having a medic in my pocket as heavy and just like holding down the point. But yeah, both are classic games. Both have a lot to offer in their own right. Not Noodle says Sasori above Minato too, and you agree. I'll give that some thought. I think that I disagree, but I'm not like a big Minato. Like I think he's both overrated and underrated. Like I think he has a reputation in the community of like initially being super highly glazed, like probably due to like Seth and stuff like that in the early days. Um, and then I think there was a backlash against that. The reality is he's somewhere in the middle. I mean, like narratively speaking, just as a casual reader of the series, he's very clearly implied to be like an incredibly exceptional shinobi. If you break it down from a power scaling perspective, though, like what are his actual feats? Like, how high does he scale? He doesn't like do all that much on panel, so I don't know. I feel like he's one of those characters whose like reputation exceeded what we actually see from him in the series. Um, okay, let's see. Shinigami says, honestly, any story worth giving a damn about should have a sensation of cause and effect. Death Note is one of the stories that do it amazingly. Oh, yeah, sure. I agree with that. Like, having a strong narrative through line or throughput or whatever you want to call it, um, and making sure that, like, things are set up and paid off correctly and effectively, that makes a lot of sense. And, having, like, the interconnectedness as well. I promise I'm doing this for a reason, by the way. Rowan was being nasty about Shinigami's intelligence, and I can't abide by that conduct. Yeah, okay, so let me just say this, like, once sort of for the record. I want this stream to always be a place where people can share their opinions freely. Like, I don't want to be content police and say, like, hey, you guys can't disagree. You guys can't talk. You, like, get heated and get passionate and stuff, right? Like, I want to let you guys talk freely. But I also think it's important for people to feel, like, included and not singled out. So, I guess I'll take a page out of Eon's book and just say, like, as long as you guys, if you guys want to, like, disagree and want to, like, have a little debate or whatever, feel free. Like, don't let me stop you. But also, please don't insult each other's intelligence. Please don't be nasty. And please don't, like, make it personal. You can disagree as strongly as you want, but like don't go after each other is what I'm saying. And I don't want to single anybody out and be like, no, you go sit in the corner now, you fucked up. Like no judgment or anything. um I don't like I don't want to be like the big brother who's like, hey, no, you gotta go fucking fuck off, or whatever big brothers tend to say. um but at the same time, I gotta, we gotta look out for each other as a community. We gotta make sure that we're treating each other with some baseline level of acceptance. So please do keep that in mind going forward. Um, see, it wasn't being nasty, just honest and correct. Okay, well, to be fair, those things are not mutually exclusive, right? Like you can be nasty and honest, or you can be kind and dishonest, or any number of combinations in between. But I think you're smart enough to understand what I'm asking for. So, of course, if you disagree, feel free to talk to me on Discord. Like we can resolve it and everything. Um, let's see, finishing catching up over here, for lack of a better word or comparison. Oh, you got those kinds. The one I was thinking of is that she's the kind of adorable and cute who is just that. She's a princess that belongs in a shoujo manga, forced into shonen. Yeah, in that case, like, it might be worth looking at what you consider to be cute characters in that genre and taking inspiration from that. Um, let's see. So it was absolutely nasty and mean spirited. You do not need to take any shots at another person's intelligence when it's not warranted. If that's the case, then I would agree with that. Yeah, please don't like get personal. Oh, you did say the mutually exclusive thing. Okay. I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but yeah, now that we've kind of established the rules of engagement, so to speak, let's all stay on the same page about that, please. Soldier Boy would win even despite the flight. Feel free to elaborate on that. I think you probably have some like strong arguments for that, right? Um, who wins an outsmarting battle, Erwin or Griffith? Probably Erwin. Yeah, Griffith. Well, no. I'm thinking of Armin. Um, I think Griffith would win for sure. Silent Hill 2 OG destroys Silent Hill 2 remake. Yeah, I think we've talked about that before, and I do think that that's something that we're gonna have to cover on stream, right? Is we're gonna have to talk about Silent Hill 2 versus the remake, and just how that comparison works. I think I would agree, but I also do respect the work that was done in the remake. You played Shelter through middle and high school. Favorite police you played: Really Dog, Danse Macabre, and Night on Bald Mountain. Very, very cool. Yeah, it's always nice to meet another Chattel player in the wild, so to speak. Um, I really liked Sicilienne by Forêt, I think was his name, and I grew to resent it because I had to play it for these like recitals that were really annoying. But I really liked The Swan by Sanson when I was learning that. Sorry, for the pronunciation. Um, but yeah. TF2 soldiers are Naruto. No, I'm not open-minded enough to entertain otherwise. Shinigami probably would agree with you there. Shinigami, you're the one that keeps saying that like Naruto characters are James Bond victims, right? So yeah, I mean like the soldier from TF2 would probably get pretty far. Well, up until the pain fight, because then once you start getting like the Asura path involved with his missiles and stuff, you know, missiles do get introduced into the verse and people deal with them pretty well. Um, I don't think Minato has any narrative to be above the Sanin or Akatsuki high tiers either. Above the Sanin, I'm not sure, but I think that I'd have to go back. I feel like, and this is not something I'm going to win a debate with, obviously. I feel like there was some narrative about like even Jiraiya saying like, oh, even I'm nothing compared to the fourth Hokage, but like I don't remember that for sure. I might just be making that up. So I don't think Minato's any narrative. Everything's a narrative goes against the struggling with 14-year-olds. Well, I mean, to be fair, Obito is like a freak, right? And he's like freakishly strong. Kamui is fucking busted and like is something that nobody, as far as I know, has ever encountered before. And so like Minato is figuring it out in real time. Obito also has Hashirama cells in him, so that's probably a significant boost. So yeah, I mean like it's 14-year-old, but it's like saying if Kakashi fought Haku when Haku was 14, then like I mean, it's like his age is not the most important factor there. He just has like a totally busted ability. Um Say that Naruto verse or James Bond victims is a joke because I know that not a single Naruto fan would defeat Abstract in making a convincing Lightspeed argument without data books. Fair, 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 fair. Yep. Soldiers fought and beaten robots. What's the sword path going to do to him? Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about the whole like the mecha arc in TF2. Does he have any feats against Marasmus? Because if that's the case, then like, you know, if we do some verse equalization, that might be there might be some more argumentation there. Um, Pain Solo's IRL humanity. Honestly, I think he gets pretty far. Yeah. So we're gonna switch to the YouTube thing in just a second, but I want to take a look at a couple of things before I wrap up here. First of all, I do think that like with the elites specifically, this is one of those things that I think it's like pretty objectively just an improvement in terms of the detail in the mouth and the jaws and stuff like that. The mandibles, I think would be the proper term for them. The elite's face overall just seems more compelling to me. I think it's more expressive. It's more modern. It fits. I will say though that I'm very confused at the change in the design of the helmet. It's so much like broader and like I don't know more convex. It's just it loses that kind of like shark fin look to it, which gives the elites less of the idea of like almost looking like oh I see you guys are heading out. No worries. I hope you guys have a great night and thank you for spending some time with us. Have a great weekend. I'll hopefully see you on Sunday for some Naruto chat, but if not, like take care. Have a great time. Um, so yeah, it looks like I think it has a silhouette that is more identifiable as akin to a predator that a human being would recognize without being too terrestrial. Like this to me looks like it could be like a shark or a killer whale or something like that, right? As opposed to this, it looks a little bit goofier, like, especially from the top. These two little eyes kind of make it look like a yeah, it looks like a cute little fish, right? Like this is one of its fins, that's one of its fins, like two little eyes on the top, little dorsal ridge over there. So the lights on the helmet are kind of cool, I guess, but it really does change the feeling of this character quite a bit. Now the armor, obviously, like very well done. The artist did a really good job. They went through this extensive process of trying to modernize the art, and I think it was successful. I think the should be praised or lauded or however like whatever you want to say for their work in and of itself. That being said, let's compare to the original. I mean, there is a well, I actually don't have that much problem with it. I think it's weird to me that there is I think there is something lost in terms of making the armor feel a little bit more just like modern Space Marine armor. There is something kind of like more alien about this, right? Like you could see a Spartan wearing an armor like this, and I know in the lore that like the shields on the Mjolnir armor are based on like the elite shields and stuff like that. So maybe there's a case for saying that they are like more similar than you might think. But something about this, I think the original design does a good job of drawing more of a distinction between the alien and the human, while still keeping an overall like recognizable, like, okay, this is body armor, I know what that does kind of feel. I did want to also talk about the Needler. So I don't know what happened here. uh I really disagree with this choice. I think I can sympathize with like wanting to give the Needler more layers and make it feel more like a kind of crazy sci-fi modernized. I don't know. This almost looks like a bug, like an alien bug that you just picked up off the ground and happened to carry around and happened to be spewing like sharp things, which is not a problem at all, right? That's not a flaw. It's kind of cool actually. Like think about the snarks and the I forget what the name of that gun is, but from Half-Life 1 that fires off all those like individual like snaking projectiles. One of the enemies drops it. Um and it's just like this pulsing, writhing like thing that you hold in your arm, hold on in your hands or whatever. Then in Half-Life 2 as well, there are those little like pheromone balls that you can use to attract the antlions. I think having like weird, cool, goopy alien biology shit that you fuck with is genuinely really cool. Um, so I don't think that's a problem. I think it's actually cooler if it looks kind of like a bug. But I also think that like the transparency that's on the crystals themselves lends to more of that, like we were talking about before, right? That fucking not lava lamp, the little plasma ball aesthetic. And going back to those shields on the beach, let's see if we can wander back over to them. I feel like the original had this, like, a better shared language in terms of. So, again, sorry, Halo lore fans, if I'm getting this wrong. I think there's a substance in the Halo universe which is called blamite, and it is specifically what these crystals are made out of. Blamite is, of course, named after the Blam engine, which is what Halo 1, well, up through Reach, I think, was running on. Various versions of the Blam engine. So it seems to me, at least at a first glance, that, like, the game established, like, this energy source, this energy palette or something, and then that was shared by multiple weapons, and you kind of see the traces of it in multiple places, which is a very basic but very important form of world building, which is just like thematic unity, thematic consistency, right? Like, if narratively these things are all powered by the same shit, they should all kind of look similar, they should sound similar, etc. It's just like very basic world building, but still very important to remember. And I feel like if they maintained that world building with the newer versions of the weapons, I'm not really feeling it. And if they didn't, that's kind of a missed opportunity. I will also say, like, I like the looks of these crystals. I do. I think they look really cool. They look really jagged. They look kind of scary, kind of intimidating. They're not the same thing at all, right? So, like, this is, to me, it turns this thing that almost looks like it's an alien bug that you're repurposing as a weapon into, no, this is definitely something that was made in a factory. It's very clearly a weapon, and these are very clearly, like, spikes that are made into weaponry. And it's like, is that a mistake? Is that a flaw? No, I mean, they seem to have kind of embraced that approach with subsequent like, iterations of the series as well, including coming from Bungie. So I think that might have been the way that they were leaning. Anyway, keeping in mind that the people who did this remaster, I'm sure, like, looked to Halo 2, 3, and Reach, or if Reach, I think Reach was out by this time, but they looked at those other versions of the. Oh, it must have been because Reach was in the MCC anyway. But yeah, they must have looked at that stuff and been like, okay, let's take inspiration from later points in the series. But again, I don't necessarily agree with that either, because whatever happens later on in the series, this game stands on its own. Like, as we'll see with the UE5 remake, this shit looks like they replaced this with something that looks like the Covenant structures from Halo 4 and going forward. It's like, okay, well, now that we've established a new artistic vision for what Covenant structures look like, or not Covenant, I'm sorry, Forerunner structures look like, then I guess let's go back and retrofit this. But, like, this one never looked like that. I personally, I don't really give a fuck if the concept art like initially looked like that. This is what it actually looks like realistically, factually. So, like, from my perspective, there's no fucking reason at all, like, whatsoever, for Halo Studios to change the aesthetic of this thing to what it looks like in the remake, which we'll see in a minute. And again, I have nothing negative to say about the artist who executed that task. Like, every person who worked on that, from, like, a lighting artist to texture artist to anybody who put, like, I don't know, environmental sound in, they did an amazing job. They did their fucking homework really, really well. But whoever, like, on top of the pyramid said, yeah, we totally got to rip out the old aesthetic and replace it with our new shit, like, fuck off. You have no business doing that. There's no reason to do shit like that, right? Other than to say, like, well, we value our own new innovative direction over the actual extant aesthetics of the original game. And this, sorry, I kind of transitions. I see some more comments. This will transition nicely back into our previous discussion. So let me finish catching up on chat. Riveting gameplay, I know. But yeah, like, take a look at the shields over here, right? Let's see how well they did. So again, this could be totally wrong. I could be pulling this out of my ass, but, like, it looks to me like you can take a look at the shield and you can take a look at the crystals and you can say, maybe these aren't literally the same thing, but they feel like they're coming from a shared kind of visual place. And then if you tab to this, very, very different. Very, very different, right? If you squint, you can see that the crystals themselves are animated. There's energy coming through them, pulsing through them, but it's, like, so subtle. And you don't see that kind of connection, that thematic unity there, which I think is a damn shame. Also, I don't know why they made these fucking things so much quieter in the remake. They changed the panels and everything. I actually think these look fucking sick. They look really, really cool. I like the way they look. But also, they're not making the telemetry sound anymore. They're not the same, right? Okay, so let me catch up on chat, and then we'll do a quick review of the fucking trailer. Okay, or the gameplay footage. Okay, sorry. Like I said, okay, so going back up a little bit, Sari says, well, yeah, like I said, that's what this is. I acknowledge it's going to overtake the original at some point. That's okay. Aonuma was the lead dungeon designer for the original. The fact that they're aiming to say this is just Ocarina of Time, not remake or anything, it's just Ocarina of Time, means that's what they want. Yeah, and I disagree with that desire on their behalf. I don't think that that is a good move, personally, based on my experience with remakes. It's part of why I'm doing the series. And by the way, it's totally fine if we disagree about this. It's just like I have very strong convictions about the implications of doing this sort of thing, right? It's available on every single console, so hold it in a place where it's like, nope, you can never do anything with this ever. It's like, well, no, because now we have a chance to do more. Well, that's just it, right? I don't necessarily think that more is more. Like, it would be like, you know how in the Ocarina of Time remake they for the 3DS, like the remaster, they added those little bouncing statues that give you hints. What are they called? The stones of time. You know what I'm talking about? Like the Sheikah stones. What are they called? Like they're these little pulsy, bouncy stone things, and if you bonk them, they'll give you a hint. And if you bomb them, they'll like rocket up into the atmosphere or whatever, right? You know what I'm talking about. I think they added one of those in the Temple of Time, and it's just there, like bouncing and yelling and like offering you hints and like dancing at you, and it's like that's what I'm talking about. Like you can, granted, I don't know if all the changes they're going to make are going to be like that, but if you go to the Temple of Time in the original, it might be old and crusty and stale and like not for this generation, but there is a specific vibe and a feel that they captured with that place that is ruined by the inclusion of that fucking Sheikah stone. And it's just, maybe you don't think it's ruined, maybe you think I'm being too harsh, but it's changed drastically. And that's what I'm afraid of, right? It's like I'm afraid of how many decisions are going to be made. The reason why Ocarina was as good as it was that developers at the time made certain decisions that were influenced by the constraints and the perspectives that they had back then. They are obviously, by definition, not going to be able to do that again because they are not the same people and we don't live in the same world. So, what will emerge is something that is fundamentally different, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also not necessarily a good thing because it might degrade the vision of the original. I think ideally what we would see is we would see the same game with the same aesthetics, the same feel, the same vibe, but just in a higher definition, like the Wind Waker HD, right? It would just be like that. They keep the same art direction, they keep the same basic mechanics. Maybe they put in like some quality of life updates, you know, like you know what? I wouldn't mind a hint, just like a little hint as to where to find like Nairu's love or something like that, right? Like, or maybe like an additional notebook that helps you track your side quests. Little things like that that are more modern amenities, or the ability to turn Navi's reminders off and to just like manually select her when you want a hint. There are things that they could do that wouldn't fundamentally change anything, but like would make things better, more accessible for a new generation. Gyro aiming on the 3DS was a great addition. I think pretty much everybody loved that, right? And if you don't like it, you can just turn it off and use the control sticks anyway. So, yeah. I feel like there are ways to do it right, and hopefully you will be correct, and what we will see is just a return to form where this thing is preserved and revitalized for a new generation, and they get to enjoy it the same way we did, and that is what I want. Is what I want. And if they never go back and play like the old, like, whatever, 480 resolution version, that's totally fine. But it's so important that the core vision and the core atmosphere and ambience are maintained. When that fucking, when you go into the forest temple, if they don't use that same soundtrack with those same creepy ass samples, you know, like the vocal loops and stuff like that, if they replace it with like an orchestration, that's going to be awful. Like it's going to be unacceptable. And I can just hear the meeting in the boardrooms now. Like, well, we can't use that shitty soundtrack from 25 years ago because it's just a simple loop. It just repeats over and over again, and there's like it's just like bad samples in MIDI instruments. If they do that, I'm gonna like we're gonna have a like a meetup or something, like a cope session for me because I'm gonna be fucking pissed. I was already pissed when they like with some of the changes that they made in the near Gestalt and Replicant remake, right? Because they changed some of the it was little subtle changes, but they changed some of the orchestration and some of the pacing of the soundtrack, and that shit was like perfect. And it does change the storytelling. And what I want is for the original storytelling to be preserved and not considered to be no longer valid. I think that's pretty disrespectful. But to bring it ambassadorially to a new generation of players that would otherwise be resistant, 100%, 100%. Why wouldn't I want something to be enjoyed by more people if it's something that I love, right? So, yeah. It's why he says he doesn't want to go back to old school Zelda. She doesn't understand why there are a group of people out there who want that either outside of nostalgia. Nostalgia can be a double-edged sword for sure. He understands that nostalgia and he gets it, but he's also like, we can do more now, and I wanted to do more. Like, he wanted Ganon to be huge. He wanted Link to scale Ganon. Well, that's cool. That's cool and all. In my opinion, he should make another game where Link scales Ganon. Or make another game that doesn't have fucking Ganon in it, because Ganon has been in so many goddamn games. Like, Ganon is cool. I like Ganon. Maybe make a game without him and put another character in it. Like, Vati was cool. Vati wasn't Ganon. He was still cool, right? Like, I don't know, fucking Windfish, you know? Like, the shit in, like, Link's Awakening was amazing. Ganon didn't enter into it. I don't think Ganon was even mentioned once, right? Maybe he was like mentioned, but he wasn't a part of the story. Link's Awakening was fucking awesome. It doesn't need to be about that, right? So like, we don't even have to have Link as a protagonist. We could have Linkle, we could have Zelda, we could have other characters entirely, potentially. So I don't know. I'm torn because like I want more people to experience the story in all of its glory, but at the same time, like like you said, the game already exists on all these platforms, right? It already exists. So why not just let it lie? Let it rest. Let it maintain its legacy. In my opinion, anyway. Climb on him like in the final fight, but it wasn't possible. On the hardware, he wanted Kokiri Force to be bigger, but it wasn't possible. I mean, like, yeah, so as an example, right, Miyazaki had always wanted to make an enemy that was made of liquid and could basically Hidetaka Miyazaki from Dark Souls wanted to make an enemy that was like a liquid amorphous blob that would just like pulse and change and shift. Wasn't able to do it with Dark Souls. Now they remastered Dark Souls, and they probably had the technology to do it by then. They certainly had the technology to do it in Elden Ring, because spoiler alert, the mimic tear is literally that. Like those, or tear, excuse me, those little mimic globby silver creatures are what Miyazaki wanted. And he put them, I'm going to just advance the plot here so I'm not just running around in a circle. He put them in a new game and did new things with them. I don't think Dark Souls 1 would have been enhanced by just like putting these unfulfilled enemies back in. It certainly wouldn't be Dark Souls anymore. It would be a different thing that was based on Dark Souls, you know what I mean? We'll say that the environment here is obviously like massively different with the lighting changes. Something tried to do with Wind Waker, but time constraints. That's why some of the dungeons were cut, and you get so much freedom after Forest Haven. While there, Zelda was always the vision he had, and while that may be something that upsets Old Town because they know, hey, I like this more. Why'd you change this? How'd you come with this? With the remix, you can already divide the vast majority, which are the Wild Era fans, are the best-selling games in the franchise. We're excited. That's cool, and like I want you guys to be able to have more cool shit. I just think that like from an artistic standpoint, from a
Mayday! Dropship problem!
I don't know how I would say it. It's like
Taking enemy fire! Repeat, we are under heavy fire and are losing altitude!
what if, for example,
Understood.
the developers of this game genuinely wanted uh, the initial section of this level to have a boat section, or sorry, for the no, I'm getting too distracted. Fuck the boat. Uh, fuck the water. Bring me wine. There was, let's say, an initial design plan for this where
Bravo
you
22 was bringing us
would
some heavy
come in
weapons.
onto the
After I
beach
saw we were up against
and
hunters, I thought
you
could use them.
would
Let's move down the
basically
beach.
have
Keep an eye out
this
for any
massive
cargo we can salvage.
massive beach area that was twice as big and sprawling, and you would have to fight up this beachhead, and there would be like all these bunkered and hunkered down Covenant and all of these like encampments and stuff, and it would take like an hour to fight through them, and they just couldn't do it because they didn't have the technology or the time constraints. So now we're going to remake Halo. Are we gonna put that shit in, is the team gonna put that huge beach assault in and call it Halo? I don't think they should, because they are taking somebody else's art that was, whether it's theirs or somebody else's, or whether it was their original vision or not, they're taking a piece of art which was factually put out by a team of people, right? Decisions were made. That team brought something to life, and that exists as it is, and it feels really weird to me to say, okay, let's go back and like fix this, in that way. I think I'll also think of the Lion King remake in 2019, where Hans Zimmer was like, oh yeah, we're not going to go back and fix the soundtrack, we're just going to go tweak a couple of things here and there. But then they like took out the triangle for no reason, and then they wound up changing a bunch of stuff. They're like, well, this is how we originally envisioned the soundtrack. This is what we wanted to do in the first place. I'm like, okay, well, regardless of your initial hopes, intentions, vision, whatever you did, whatever you wanted, you guys made the Lion King. And like, regardless of the like pretty terrible like pro-imperialist, pro-monarchy messaging like that movie has in it, it's also like a genuinely really great piece of animation and music. And like, part of what makes it charming is like the little MIDI synth flute that we hear, and like the little jangly guitars in the background. And in the remake, they decided, no, we don't like any of that shit, and they just got rid of it. It's like, now the movie that Disney promotes, the movie that is on the front page that comes up before the original Lion King, the movie that is just called The Lion King, is The Lion King 2019, with that terribly mangled, awful soundtrack. And they're just marketing it as The Lion King, right? And it's got all, like, maybe Disney would have preferred to have done everything in live action back in the day if they could have. Live action, I say, like the CGI stuff, as opposed to, they call it live action. It's obviously not live action, right? But that, to me, personally, doesn't matter, because it is what it is and it stands on its own. And I don't really think it's a good idea to go back and change that stuff, because I think you wind up, like, fucking with a legacy that... and setting a bad precedent going forward. But... if they decided to remake the original Mario, like Mario 1, or you know what? Did they did eventually remake Metroid 2, right? I have no interest in going back and playing the original on NES. Or Metroid 2 was on Game Boy, wasn't it? I, like, personally don't don't really care if the no, I shouldn't say that. I do care if, like, the remake of Metroid 2 changes the aesthetic and the storytelling based on the original, compared to the original. But also, I'm almost certainly not going to go back and play the original on Game Boy at this point. I'm only going to play the remake. So, I get it. I agree. And also, I am extremely skeptical of the like so many things you talked about, like where we've had minor disagreements. Saria, I agree with you in principle and in theory, and I just have zero fucking faith that the games industry is going to handle it well, because it never does. Like, I hope I'm proven wrong. I feel having played through probably like half of Pragmata, I feel much more comfortable with it than I initially did. Remember when we had the conversation about the character design choices? I will also say that like the moment I got the first outfit, I like extra unlockable outfit, I put that on and it stayed on, and I was like, this could have been the first one. It could have solved a lot of problems. But anyway, or the default one rather. But I kind of came around to your point of view over time is what I'm saying. Um, yeah, this is all really good discussion. These are all really good points because this is kind of like why I wanted to have this stream in the first place to talk about um, whether or not remakes can be done right. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope that like everything I've said thus far about the Zelda remake gets proven wrong. I want that to be the case because I want it to succeed. I would love to go back and play it the way I remembered playing it as a kid. So anyway. Something he tried to do with Wind Waker, but time. Oh yeah, yeah. Did they really do a good job if it's not capturing the feeling of the character? Do artists work with their islands, or do they come up with their own stuff? So in my experience in the games industry, there is always, I would say in almost all the studios I've worked with, there is a creative director, usually one person, but these days it's sometimes more of a team. Sometimes the bullshit like business term we will use for it is SLT, senior leadership team, and this is basically like an individual or a few individuals who are in charge of the overall creative vision and direction of the project. Oftentimes they will be like the bottleneck, so to speak. They will be like the point of contact for how like look at this is so vastly different. I actually really like the artwork that was done here, but also yeah. And so they will kind of be like the arbiters of like the final decision making, and they will often like come up with the initial like plans for things and have like, they'll be the gatekeepers, so to speak. Then there will be department leads, so like the art team will have like an art director or multiple art directors, and then they will specifically help flesh out the creative director's artistic vision, but often they will also come up with their own ideas. They'll have their own plans, they'll do their own research, get their own concept stuff together, and then within that team they will supervise and be in charge of and like various smaller or larger art teams. And some of those individuals will be like concept artists who just do like essentially initial sketches, not literal sketches, they're full-fledged works of art, but they do like they define the concepts of how things should look in game. Others will work on textures, others will work on 3D models, etc., right? So you have in a traditional game development setup, you have like several different layers of like reporting upward, I guess is one way to put it. And so individuals like if you have the good fortune to work on like a good team that knows how to respect and utilize its talent, the creative direction as well as people like at various points in the hierarchy will listen to the people quote unquote under them, right? Like if I'm hiring someone to be like a sound designer, at one point I had to like hire a couple sound designers to help on a project, and what I looked for were people who would be able to tell me, John, no, that's dumb. Here, I think I could do this better, right? Like, I specifically want people, like, if I were working on a Silent Hill game, I would want, people to come in and be like, I like Silent Hill for these reasons, I dislike it for these reasons, this is what I feel we should do. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, it would come to a deadline. I'm like, okay, we need to get this sound in, the creative director wants this, let's say I'm the audio director, I want that, so we're going to need to do this. And if they say, no, this is wrong, this sucks, I'm not going to do it, right? If they, like, throw a fit, there's a certain point at which, like, you see how I cheated there for the lighting? I'll talk more about that later. There's a certain point at which it's like, you just gotta fucking get stuff in sometimes, right? Like, there's a certain point at which, like, we don't really have time for feedback. Even if you don't like it, we have to get something in. We can't just, like, have a strike, you know? Because then we'll all get fucked. And I say that as advice to myself as much as anybody else, because I am that, like, annoying motherfucker who just will not drop it, as I'm sure you know from the Naruto streams, and, like, until, like, years after the game has come out, I'll still be like, we should have fixed that, we should have done this differently. But anyway, those are the people I want to hire, those are the people I want to work with, because I want people who are gonna feel empowered to contribute and participate on all levels of the hierarchy. I don't really like the top down, like don't bother the people in the think tank. They can't spend precious neurons on you. Like fuck that shit. It's so cringe. It's so like outdated. That is not the way that you know like make good use of your talent. And some people have not learned that lesson in our industry and refuse to do so, and they really need to grow up, and it's a problem, but I digress. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I think probably what happened with this is that like you had somebody at the top, like a group of people who are like I guess like in control of the overall team, and then those people are like, okay, art director, it's your job to make this look good. And then the art director is like, okay, well, here's what I think we should do. What do you guys think, art team? The art team will come back and say like, oh, I think X, Y, and Z. Usually not everybody on the art team will get to be in that meeting. So like the art director, a couple of like senior artists and producers and stuff will kind of decide on the plan, and then they will hand that down, right? So like this health pack over here, this health pack could have been executed by like one or two people, where you have one person doing the 3D model of it and another person doing the texturing. Maybe another person would have contributed as well, but you know, one or two people could have made this. And so this person who made this could have been the art director for all I know, and they could have been like, okay, I have a vision for how this health pack should look, and I'm going to define it, and then I'm going to go make it myself, right? If you're a director, you should have the ability to do like the basic work that anybody you're directing can do as well. That being said, they might also have been like, okay, I am going to define what I want this box to look like, and I'm going to pass it to my producer. My producer is going to put it on the schedule. They're going to find somebody to work on it. They're going to give this to like a junior artist. The junior artist is going to execute it and send it back to me. And then as long as the creative director likes it, it's done, right? And unfortunately, especially when shit hits the fan and we're crunching and stuff like that, that's how a lot of stuff winds up like getting in the game. We just like have a very limited amount of time and resources, oftentimes because the time and resources that we have are mismanaged. And then so it's like you just get tasks, and the tasks will be like, design this crate, like here are the specifications, design this med box, like, or med kit, here are the specifications. And you do just kind of have to shut up and do it. It sucks sometimes, because if you have strong convictions and your team is not willing to listen to you, that sucks. And also sometimes it's like, especially if you're a contractor, you're not working in-house, sometimes it's like, we just need more art in the game. You just need to make this, right? So, sorry, that was a bit of a rant. Hopefully I answered your question. But what I meant to say was, like, let's say that I really hated the design of this box, and I thought it was very anti-Halo, and I thought it didn't match the aesthetics, and I just thought it was terrible, right? Okay, I can say that. What I'm really saying is that I strongly disagree with the overall creative and aesthetic direction. So the people who were in charge of defining this deliverable, this is what this should look like and feel like, I think they made the wrong call. But then at some point, they would have passed this to an artist. That artist could have voiced their concerns or not voiced their concerns if they disagreed with it. But then that artist had to do a job whether they liked it or not. And this artist did a really good fucking job. Because, like, look, they took the time to draw this little sigil. That's cool. That's not on the original that I can see. I don't think it fits the lore, but whatever. Like, think about the time that it would have taken to paint that in. They did a good job. It looks really cool. Look at all of the detail and the patterning on this thing. Now, the original doesn't seem to have a hexagonal pattern on it. I don't know why they did that on the fucking plasma rifle as well. I don't know why they put hexagons on everything. So, whatever. But I can look at this and say, like, man, fuck hexagons. The Covenant don't need hexagons. This is a stupid thing. I hate this. What I'm really saying is I disagree with the overall aesthetic direction and decision to, like, use hexagons. But this artist, whoever got told to do it, did a good job. I mean, look at these hexagons. They're pretty. They're shiny. They map very nicely in with the overall mesh. There's, like, if you look closely, you can see that there's, like, scarring and scraping and weathering and tearing. There's different parts that are more or less reflective. Somebody spent hours, maybe days, on just getting, like, this surface polished. Look at the way that the light kind of reflects off of it as you go around. You can kind of see shiny over there, shiny over there. Somebody worked their asses off getting this thing to look the way that it does. So I just want to be very clear, to be respectful, and be like, yo, creative director, I think you made a choice that I disagree with, regardless of whether it's right or wrong. I disagree. But whoever executed this task did a really good job, right? Like, hopefully that makes some kind of sense. Anyway, running out of time here. Let's see. Already you can see the divide. The vast majority, which are the Wild Era fans, the best-selling games of the franchise, were excited, while the old fans are nitpicking a 10-second clip of Link sleeping. They're already making videos about how this is a huge problem. Would you hate me if I said that I also don't like the Link sleeping thing? I also don't like the way that it looks. But I'm the motherfucker who like won't play the remake because I don't like the way that Link runs. I think it's too smooth and it doesn't feel cool enough. So, you know, I have my convictions. At the core of the problem is that they're not just being open to change. That is very much a real problem for sure. They're not giving it a chance. Yeah, they should give it a chance for sure. It's like, so should they just re-release the N64 and only Ocarina on that console like they did with the Wii Mini and call it a day because of vocal minority adverse to change? You know, like when you put it that way, no, I don't think that's necessary. At least from my the way that I'm coming from it is that I actually do want the next generation to have the experience I had when I played it for the first time. Meaning that like I want the development team to do is to bridge the gap of technology between like the previous iteration of the software and the new one while still retaining the core of it, right? Which is kind of what I said before. But I don't think it needs to be identical, right? And there's some things that need to be refreshed. It's just like what is the core experience that is really, you know what? Here's a good example. Well, okay. So one of the reasons why I won't replay Majora's Mask is because they use this, I think it's an oboe, this instrument in the soundscape that has like this very nasally, very whiny tone to it that I hate. It like actually makes me queasy to listen to it. Think about like the Great Swamp theme, you know, how the melody goes like dun 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 dun. That instrument, whatever the lead primary instrument is there, that like whining, piercing, screeching sound is in everything in the fucking soundtrack, and I hate it so much. It's like, again, I don't think the composer did anything wrong, but I hate that sound. It's like nails on a chalkboard. It makes me fucking upset, right? So personally, if they remake Ocarina or Majora the way they're doing with Ocarina, I kind of want them to change that. I kind of want that shit to go away because that's what's keeping me from playing the fucking game, as strange as that sounds. But I also kind of don't because, like, for whatever reason, they made that choice, and I might hate it, and it might make it, like, more resistant for me to play it, but at the same time, that game exists in the way that it does, with the tonality that it does, with the feeling and the vibe that it does, because of that choice. And I don't, as much as I personally want to be able to play it my own way, with my own preferences, I don't really think it's right of me to want to see that change. Like, if a game comes out and they're like, Majora's Mask Dark Legacy, or Majora's Mask Echoes of the Skull Kid's Dirty Thoughts or something. Fucking no, I can't think of a title. But you know, like Skull Kid Edition, I don't know. Fucking, then they can do whatever they want to it because it's clear that they're making a distinction. But if they just like say this is Majora's Mask categorically, and then they change it, it's like, okay, well, regardless of whether or not it's ambassadorial to my tastes, that generation is never gonna get to have that experience at all. It's like, I think something gets lost there. And so like they should just but I also don't want to exclude people. I think something that I'm not giving you enough credit for is you're identifying people being left out, and less us old head elitists being like, you guys aren't cool enough, you don't get to have this is just for us, not for you. And honestly, that's really shitty. So if I'm doing that, if I'm like unintentionally gatekeeping, I apologize, because like I don't want to push other people away from something I love ever.
Interesting. A shrine is an unlikely place to put such a significant installation.
Cortana to Captain Keyes.
The captain has dropped out of contact, Cortana. His ship may be out of range or having equipment problems.
Keep trying. Let me know when you've re-established contact, and then tell him that the Master Chief and I have determined the location of the control center. We'll be heading there as soon as we're topside.
Affirmative. Bowhammer out.
It's like saying that like Silent Hill 2 has bad dialogue. I mean, like the actors didn't really put on a Hollywood performance. And so I could understand why you might want quote-unquote better actors to participate in a remake. But at the same time, that lack of good performance also, like, contributed to the game having a very, like, Twin Peaks kind of weird, like, sort of off vibe, which was a deliberate choice. They could have casted, like, quote-unquote better actors in the traditional sense. They did for the remake, I guess. But, you know, is it actually better? I don't know. I think it's worth discussing. Not fair to new gen fans. Yeah, the history being talked about means nothing. This helps new gen fans get that experience. I disagree. I don't think it means nothing, but okay. That's absolutely why this is happening, is leading into more Wild Era content, and the fact that they've been working on this since 2022, it'd be disappointing to get just the exact same game again, but just prettier again, where the people they're aiming at complain about it again, when they can remake it fresh and new, and the Wild Era fans will be like, this fucking rocks, because they'll be like Ocarina but more. Yeah, so I sympathize with that. I don't agree, personally. It's not what I want, but I definitely sympathize with your perspective there. I think there's a lot of merit to what you're saying. My perspective is coming from being a jaded developer and gamer who has consistently seen developers bungle this task so many times that I don't really trust them to do it right. But that's like, in principle, what you're saying is totally fine, from my perspective. That being said, also, I do wonder if you could flip what you're saying. Yeah. In that, like, it kind of sounds like you're saying, well, your Wild Era fans don't have enough, and or like this is for Wild Era fans. It's not for like you old heads, and you old heads already have your thing, so give us our thing. But I mean, when Breath of the Wild came out, old heads have been waiting a long time for like a proper Ocarina sequel, or maybe you could say proper Twilight Princess sequel, and we didn't get one, right? Like, Breath of the Wild has a lot of good stuff in it. It's not another fucking traditional Zelda game. It does not occupy the same territory as a Twilight Princess or a Ocarina or a Wind Waker. It's a very different game. So we wanted that, and we didn't get it. And another game came out in the same era, and we didn't really want that. And it moved more in the direction of, like, you know, Fortnite, Roblox-y kind of stuff. Roblox Minecraft type stuff, you know. We didn't want that. Nothing to do with what we wanted out of Zelda. And now, for the next thing that's coming along, they're like, okay, well, we're going to take something that you do like, right? That was the thing that you've been waiting for a sequel, and instead of actually giving you a sequel, we're going to take it and say, okay, this doesn't belong to you anymore. We're going to change it in some ways that we're not going to like be super clear about, and we're going to repackage it and give it to somebody else. And I think that's the way I just described it is kind of reductionist. It belongs to anybody who wants to play it. But if you are framing the argument in terms of like who it's for, and like if you don't like this, then it's not for you, I think there's a case to be made that the best version of a Zelda game that can come out now is a game that is for everyone, right? It's a game that like incorporates all the best parts of both the old and modern series and innovates while also staying true to the spirit. And there might be a way to try to get everybody in together rather than creating a divide. I don't know, it just feels kind of shitty to be like, okay, well, you got to have your fun with this, and now your era is over, and now this thing isn't what it is anymore, and you can't do anything about that, so go cope, right? Like, it feels like that's kind of where the argument is verging towards, and that makes me a little sad. But that's okay, you know, we can have our disagreements about that. I would genuinely, honestly, really like for the next generation, like kids who are, let's say there's a kid who's like 8 or 10 or 12 right now, they get to play Ocarina when it comes out, and they get to have the experience that we did, however old we were, when we played Ocarina for the first time, and it feels to them like that felt to us. That would be so fucking cool for them. Like, if I had a kid, I would probably if I had a choice between like the OG and a newer spangled version that had some like quality of life improvements and shit, I would probably want them to play the new one. Like, why not? Especially if that would be their preference. It's just I don't want it to come at the expense of the artistry that was made before. Also, I fucking hate this level design. I played through this like 3 times in the past year, and I like fucking hate it. I really hate this space. It's so fucking confusing. That doesn't mean it's bad. I just hate it. Anyway, the fact that they've been working on this. Oh yeah. I think I'm still behind. Here's another example, right? So in the Halo remake, we'll watch the trailer in a second. They changed the Covenant voices to be the elites, the Sangheili, to be speaking in English, because later on they learn how to speak English, and I guess like in the lore they probably would have known how to speak English at this point too. And there's a case to be made. Hello. There's a case to be made for doing so, because in addition to maybe being like better in terms of the lore, also the original audio files a lot of the times were just, you know, they would take the line of a Marine, or I think Sergeant Johnson or something, and they would just like lower the pitch and reverse it. So a lot of the lines for the elites are actually just lines of other characters that are pitched down and reversed and repurposed. So it's like, okay, well, we can hire new actors, get brand new performances, new high quality audio, and so why don't we just change it and have them speak English? Well, it's like I will stop and hesitate before saying that is the right or the wrong decision, but I will say that to me personally, it feels like missing the point, right? It feels like you're not really doing your job, you're not really understanding the assignment. If you want to re-record the dialogue in a higher quality, that's totally fine. But, like, make them say the shit that they did before. There's no reason to change that. I mean, I say there's no reason. There is an arguable reason for it. I'm being, like, not hyperbolic is the term for it. Non-literal. I'm speaking figuratively. It's like, obviously you can find reasons for it, but, you know. Where the fuck did he go? I will say, though, that, like, people feel like, fuck's sake. No. People feel like the design of the cloaking on the elites and stuff is much better in the remaster or the remake, so that's one of those things, actually, and I guess I'll pause here. So it's one of those things where we'll take a look at it in a second, but I think people would be, well, fuck, shit, this ass, words difficult. If the initial intention for the elites was that when they are cloaked, they are basically invisible, and they couldn't pull that off with the hardware the first time around, and so, like, it objectively, like, failed their goal, like, the elites just look goofy and there's no challenge to it. Personally, my response to that would be like, well, yeah, then fucking fix them, right? And it seems like that was indeed part of the approach that Halo Studios took, because if you watch the footage, at least I've heard from people who have played it, that they actually prefer the cloaked elites in the new version because they are harder to spot, and that fits the initial design better. And I agree with that choice. So now I'm going to have to think about, like, if that's a contradiction, and if so, like, where that contradiction is coming from. The fact that they've been working on this again since 2022. Oh yeah, we went over that stuff, the artist guidelines. Wind Waker HD is what Ocarina 3D was. Most of the franchise doesn't have Ganon. Okay, yeah, so there you go. Yeah, I agree, I never played the original Metroid. I'll always play Zero Mission because fuck the NES Mission is insane. There's no map, there's no way to remember where you have or haven't been. My sister made a map from when she originally played it, like I did for NES Zelda, and I'm like, how did you do this? Because at least NES Zelda, every quadrant looks different. NES Metroid was made by Demons for Demons, and yes, I'm including my sister in that. Yeah, that's totally fine. But so, this is the thing, right? That, like, if you put a map in Dark Souls, I would have a fit. because it doesn't belong there. And I don't want to hear any fucking arguments about like, oh, it's more accessible, oh, it's more modern, oh, kids these days wouldn't like. I don't give a shit. Like, Dark Souls was designed without a map for a reason. You can't just put one in there and say like, oh, we're just refreshing it or innovating on it, right? So like, compare that to the shield to the fucking cloaking thing. What is it called? Active camouflage, right? Those are two instances where like, yes, you can change and fix things and improve things without losing the soul of the original, but also there's a line and you can cross that line and ruin things. Dark Souls would be fucking ruined with a map, I believe. Now Elden Ring wouldn't. Elden Ring having a map is fine. A Souls game having a map is not heresy, but Dark Souls 1 having a map, just it's not unacceptable. Game production seems interesting. It is. It's extremely. It's interesting. It's extremely fatiguing and frustrating, and like very, 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 very inefficient. But I love it, despite all the insanity. To me, it feels like they just changed everything for the sake of changing everything. Kind of nonsensical designs. I think that winds up being the consensus about this game in particular. Yeah, I don't want to be too hard on the artists. Like they clearly did their homework assignment, so to speak, very effectively. But I do think that the direction was lacking. It was a bit misguided. Saria says, I mean, that's just not true. The reason Skyward Sword was the last traditional 3D Zelda is because people said they were tired of the formula, and now those same people, after two open-air games, say it's stale, which isn't really fair, especially considering a lot of them didn't even engage with those games on a genuine level. The amount of people who say the lore is broken because of those games, but can't tell you much of anything as it relates to the old 3D Zelda. It's like, well, okay, how can you say it's broken? And then they'll say they don't like the combat, and that's fair. I prefer Wind Waker's combat. However, the combat in the Wild Era is magnificent if you're creative, and they'll blame the game for the lack of creativity, and that's not fair. Right, so I don't want to like question your lived experience of dealing with people who are like actually treating the game like shit and being unfair. I will say that like I agree with you that I prefer Wind Waker combat, and I think that there's some good aspects to the Wild Era combat, but overall I don't think it really clicks the same way that the older games do. I think there is a way to be critical of that without being unfair. I'm sorry that you have run into people that have been unfair though. That sucks. Um, you like in your Breath of the Wild stream, you criticized Breath of the Wild for Rome giving brief exposition you can skip. When I said, well, what about the Deku Tree? If you say no, you're stuck in a loop until you say yes to exposition and you hand waved it away to defend Ocarina. Oh, that might have been a contradiction of mine. I'm willing to own that. Yeah. Trying to think back, I so in the moment I did genuinely feel like that whole exposition dump was not handled very well. I think it was too much and it was kind of boring and I wasn't very interested in it personally. Um, that being said, there's an argument to be made, I think, that like you need to equip the player with a baseline amount of information before setting them off into the world to make sure that they have context for the events that are going on. And so it's sort of like maybe a necessary evil that other people might even not see as being evil, right? So I could be convinced otherwise. If I don't remember for sure, I'd have to go back, but I think the way that I feel now anyway is that looking back at Ocarina, it's like Ocarina itself was well, first of all, was like very young, right? Like it was an entry into a genre that was still kind of emerging, and there were a lot of problems that were still being addressed and solved and approached for the first time. So I don't mean to hand wave it, but I will be gentler on Ocarina in the same way that I'll be gentler on Super Mario 64 for having worse camera controls than Odyssey, because they were doing a lot of things for the first time. But like it's been decades now. I think we should have matured as storytellers, and I don't think that the exposition dump can be as readily excused as it was like in what 1999, right? Like I think we just should have gotten better since then, and I was kind of lamenting the fact that we haven't, in my opinion, progressed far enough along the way. It's possible that I have my nostalgic goggles on. I'm too kind about Ocarina, but like when I play Ocarina, I don't mind the cutscene with Ferror, with like the goddesses coming and bestowing the Triforce onto Hyrule and stuff like that. It doesn't really bother me. I think because what's going on is, I don't know, more interesting to me personally. But yeah, I could totally see like if I woke up on the other side of the bed on a given day, like finding that just as irritating as the shit in that like Roam said. So I don't know. It's totally fair for you to point out that that might be a contradiction, and I'll give that some more thought. So thank you for bringing that criticism, so to speak, or like the feedback. More evil Eren or Homelander? Well, I think it really depends on how you define evil. Um, I think Homelander to me feels more evil because he thinks what he's doing, like he's aware that what he's doing is genuinely terrible, and he likes that fact. Whereas Eren has sort of resolved himself to doing something awful in pursuit of a larger, better goal. Now, that doesn't justify what he's doing, but if you think about evil as a byproduct of intent, then Homelander is worse. He does things just to kind of prove that he's better than other people and just to like revel in his superiority, whereas Eren like genuinely seems tortured by some of the things he has to do and resigns himself to it, and you can see him getting like hollowed out and like becoming less and less human over the course of the story as he continues to do worse and worse things in service of his nation. You could argue that that is still evil. I mean, yeah, he causes so much destruction and bloodshed and terror, but it's different from what Homelander's doing. Yeah, I see your comment that he does it entirely for himself. So my interpretation is different, and my interpretation is based on the idea that he's still doing it out of some sort of loyalty to his country and to his friends, which you could argue is for himself. But I don't think he's like whatever way you slice it. I don't think he's as sadistic and as like gloating as Homelander is. Um, but this depends on how you define evil. Are you defining evil by intention or by outcome? Because obviously, like, Eren does way more damage to way more people, and so yeah, like by that definition, he's like exponentially, like unquantifiably, hugely more evil than Homelander. But if Homelander got his wish, then the scales might be much closer, right? At the end of the day, Eren, like even if he was doing it for himself, Eren did envision a better world. He envisioned a world that would eventually be good for a certain group of people. And Homelander, I think, specifically just wanted to like cut down the wheat or whatever the expression is, like separate the wheat from the chaff, where he was the chaff and everybody else was wheat. And that to me is less redeemable on some kind of cosmic sense. Um, well, let's see. When I say, what about the Deku Tree? If you say you're stuck in a loop, you say yes to exposition. Yeah, I'll give that some more thoughts, sorry. And maybe that's something we can continue talking about on the server as well. Um, it's like, so the that Wild Era never really stood a chance for that subset of the fandom because it wasn't doing the old format. You know, that's fair. That's fair. I think that was my initial response to it. It was like, this is not my Zelda, and I want my Zelda, therefore this is not Zelda, therefore this is bad, and I feel cheated and lied to be honest, to be totally honest. That was my like precise reaction when the game first came out. I was like, I wanted this thing the way I wanted it for me, and I didn't get it, and now I'm upset, right? And that wasn't very fair of me because I wasn't allowing for it to be for someone else. So I think that you touched on an important thing there. Ryoman says he directly says it's not for himself, and AOT presents a clear alternative to help his country better than the one he uses, which he knows about and doesn't disagree with. That's fair. Um, he just wanted to see the empty world, not better world. Okay, well, in that case, then yeah, he would be worse than Homelander. I meant not for his friends. Directly says, it wasn't for his friends, is what I meant. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't remember. I binged like the last season, so I don't remember a lot of it. I'll take your word for it. Um, Epsilon says, "Have you played Chronos: The New Dawn?" I have not, but that's from the same studio as fucking um, the Silent Hill 2 remake, right? Bluebird team. If so, then I should probably check it out. Okay, I'm gonna have to go pretty soon. But in the meantime, I think what I would like to do is see if I can bring up the fucking, sorry, I'm blanking right now. See if I can bring up the Silent Cartographer real quick. Um, if I can actually find it easily enough, then we'll just spend like 10 minutes looking at it just to kind of put a yeah, this is from 7 months ago. So let's do the third person gameplay because it's more interesting. even though it's a little bit different, obviously. Okay, so we bring this up. Window capture. There we go. Okay, test audio. Okay, so to be clear, this is recent gameplay of the remake that is being made by Halo Studios. That's coming out sometime next month, the month after that, I forget. This is just from a YouTube channel. Well, it's from the Halo official YouTube channel. And so yeah, I just want to go through the opening cutscene and maybe the first like minute of combat to kind of cap off the discussion here. Oh, you found it very interesting? Cool, cool. Yeah, I'll check it out. Especially with like, I know it's a few months away, but like I definitely want to do like a spooky games marathon in October, so we could add that to the list. I really love that they brought back the old loading screen. Oh, for fuck's sake, hang on a second. No, that's not going to be acceptable. One sec. Silent Cartographer. Okay. We should probably just go back and, like, granted things have been polished, I bet, since then. But, or unless, hang on, this is 2 days ago. Is this gonna, oh, Assault in the Control Room? Well, we didn't play that, so, yeah. So, granted, this is from several months ago, so this is probably, it's probably better now, right? So, okay, so to start off with, immediately, something that I noticed is that we're not starting off in the ships, right? We're getting this view coming in of the planes. There's more focus on the Pelicans. Or actually, no, I think that this is basically quite similar to the original, right? So let me stop talking for a second. So to me, this is a very small thing, but it's also a very profound thing. We are no longer inside the chief's helmet as the chief. Now we are seeing him from behind, from outside. And like a weirdo, he is looking in the opposite direction of where he's going, which fair, looking around, there's nothing inherently awful about that. But this is a minor change, and also it's a huge change. It's the Titanfall 2 change, right? We're supposed to be inside the motherfucker's head. It's supposed to be us. But now we are seeing this from an external perspective. Why? As far as I can tell, it's just so that we can have more glory shots of the cool new HD render of the Chief. And it might be the case that this is what they wanted to do originally. But personally, I don't give a shit. Because, like, regardless of the initial intention, the game was executed in such a way that you were inside Chief's head, and it was effective, and it told that story. And if the idea here is to preserve that story, to preserve that legacy, this is not accomplishing that. That doesn't mean that the cutscene is bad, that the artist did a bad job, that the sound designers did a bad job, or anything like that. They all did their work, their homework assignments very well. I can sing the praises of like how good the lighting looks and how good the armor looks and everything all day long. It's the direction that's the problem.
What they call the silent card.
Again, like very, very cool effects on these ships, right? I love the little fires coming off of the engines. I love the like spume coming off of the ocean, whatever you call it, right? Very, very cool. Also not correct.
Is somewhere under this island.
That design of the Covenant structure, what the fuck am I even looking at, right? Like, that's probably something that was pulled from later in the series, has no goddamn business being here. That is completely irrelevant to a remake of this environment. And I know you could, and this is not targeted at you, Saria specifically, but like you could say, well, this looks better. This is part of the modern aesthetic. This is more refreshing for a new audience. Okay, but it's fundamentally like changing the way that this installation was created and how it functions and the story it's telling and the atmosphere. And so if our goal as creatives is to ambassadorially, if that's even a word, bring an older work of art done by other people, refresh it and reintroduce it to a new generation, that's not happening. We are making something that is new. It is a different story. It is just simply bearing the trappings and the like wearing the skin of the old shit. And to me, that's kind of creepy. And I'm just realizing now that is the... Oh, what the fuck? Is that showing up on stream? My stream preview is like totally black. Okay. Okay. Um, well, I guess it would have been helpful if I fucking had the window active while I was talking. 1 second. There we go. Okay. Make sure I put the chat on top. You guys can see. Okay. Fuck me. Okay. Anyway, I don't like this big silver stupid thing. And also, I don't know if it came through, but I was mad about this. I was mad about this. Moving on. Yeah, no, it's not you, Ryoman, it's me.
The Covenant believe that what they
Sorry about that.
called the silent Cartographer is somewhere under this island. The Cartographer is a map room that will lead us to Halo's control center.
Nice, beautiful glory shots of the ships coming in. I appreciate that. Also, we're supposed to be in the Chief's head, right? Again, it's totally fine and cool and awesome that they wanted to have a really spiffy scene where the spaceships come in and they do a strafing run and they blow shit up and it's cool and stuff like that. Although, it's worth noting that, like, there should then be debris from the Spirit that gets blown up on the beach afterwards. So we'll be curious to see if they thought of that. This is total horseshit. This has nothing to do with anything. We're outside of the Chief's perspective. That's concerning to me. And again, they decided to go with the remastered treatment of all of the shit in the water. I don't know why. I don't know why we couldn't have had the like vast barren openness, why it had to be so cluttered. Like, you could have had this entire scene and had it be through Chief's visor and thereby like not like still retain the overall inclusion of all these additional like glitzy fancy new graphics and stuff, but still maintain the storytelling. I will say that the particle scatter from the sand looks great.
We're approaching the LZ. It's gonna be hot. Get set to come out swinging.
And now we transition back into the Chief's like primary visor, or like through his POV. So I mean, overall, fundamentally, the beach itself looks pretty much the same, although the positioning of the rocks has changed, the shape of the rocks has changed, the tactical landscape has changed. I don't actually think that that is a problem per se, because at the end of the day, like, as long as the overall feel of that combat beat feels the same, I'm not going to quibble too much about the individual placement of rocks and shit like that, as long as they're implemented correctly and it provides meaningful cover and shit like that, right? So I don't really have a problem with this out the gate. I will say that I think the purple crates and the like the shield as well, they all feel like they're fitting the original aesthetic better than the remaster. The Anniversary Edition, nice visual effects on one of the tanks, nice bright shiny blood splatter. So overall, it feels like they are leaning pretty significantly, maybe not with like the character designs, right? This guy looks like a fucking brown blob, right? It's not as iconic and as like clearly differentiated and visually stark as stuff in the original was. But looking at how they dealt with the environment, yeah, there's more clutter in the near field, but it's also like in the far field, they've moved some of the shit out of the way of the mountains and stuff to kind of clear the way for the Halo. So that looks, for the ring, I mean the structure. So that looks pretty good. I'd say the explosions and stuff look pretty good. They feel pretty good. You know, it's interesting because they seem to be even leaning quite heavily into the very clear, punchy aesthetic of things like blood and particle effects and things like that. Like even the little light here on the AR is like extremely bright and noticeable and charismatic. But with other things like the character designs, they're kind of blotchy and indistinct. Right? So, I wonder how they're making those choices. Ironically, I kind of expected to play this and be like, this is wrong, that is wrong, whatever. In a lot of ways, I think it does fix some of the problems that the remaster presented, but also like obviously the storytelling on of this whole area is very very different from the original, right? Like this whole scene is much more lush and vibrant and lived in. There's so much more going on here, and therefore you lose that feeling of it being like a barren, haunted, empty space. I think they did a really good job incorporating the fizzling effect on the elite's armor there, and the elite shield. You notice, so like the elite himself is kind of hard to make out. Like you can see his silhouette. The silhouette's very clear actually, but the lighting around him is like it's kind of hard to make out his shape, and then his silhouette. Well, sorry, that's contradictory. The silhouette itself is strong. The character itself is not lit very well, so you can't really see him very clearly, despite like the ambient lighting that should be in the scene. But also notice how his silhouette kind of like blends into the next character over because of how dark that other character is too. That being said, this is mitigated by some really great dynamic lighting on the shield hits. So when you strike, when you like succeed in scoring a hit with your assault rifle on the armor of the elite, if the shield is active, then it will generate a little like spark and light at the location. So this is an interesting case in which, or instance in which, the quote unquote lack of good lighting, if you consider that to be the case, um, given that it's like darker here, actually creates an opportunity for these little flashes of light to add more dynamic quality to the scene, and it's giving you reinforcement for your gameplay actions as well as just providing like visual eye candy, right? So it's a weird kind of paradox in which you could argue from a certain definition that they quote unquote made it worse, but they also made it better by making it worse, right? So like I wouldn't even use that harsh of a terminology, but yeah, yeah, and like notice like the fizzing and sparking on the shield, and like how I guess you could argue that the fact that the environments are kind of not drab, but they're not like as thoroughly illuminated as they potentially could be, actually helps the Covenant weaponry to stand out as being more dramatic, I guess. Right? Like those explosions read super clearly. The blood reads super clearly. It feels like they were aware of the loss of clear visual data about enemies from the remaster, and they tried to do their own, like to implement their own fix for it. And I think they kind of succeeded. It's definitely not the same fucking game, but but it feels okay, right? Like if this is what the Ocarina remake wound up being, it wouldn't be the end of the world. It's just it's sad to lose. Like okay, so yeah, to go back to what you were saying before, Epsilon. Like whoever made this tree, right? Whoever got the task of making this tree, it's blurry, obviously, so like we're not seeing it in representative quality, unfortunately. Um, Let me see if I can get it to look better. Now it's just like the motion blur. Like whoever made the street did a really good job. Like look at all the intricacies and the layers and the textures and the holes and stuff like that. Like whoever made this tree did a really good job. I don't think this tree should be in this fucking game because I think that it would be better if there was nothing here. Or well, the trees are probably fine. Maybe like the moss and the vines and stuff over here would be a better example. But let's just say that I thought this tree was an affront to the Halo lore and this tree shouldn't exist and whatever, and I really hated it, right? The artists still did a really good job executing on the task that they were given. They made a really cool looking tree. It wasn't up to them whether or not the tree got needed to be in the game. It wasn't up to them whether or not the tree fit in with the lore or whether it belonged here. They got a task on their plate that said make this tree, and they did a really, really good job. And I just don't want to blame artists who worked their fucking asses off and did a really great job with the tasks they were given for the mistakes that were made by people higher up on the food chain. Yeah, like, cool that they wanted the elites to say more things, but it loses something, right? I will say that the shields, interestingly enough, I think the shields kind of the jackal shields fall halfway in between the remaster and the original, because they've lost that iconic, like, looking like a weird glowing alien cat's eye attribute, but they are like more transparent to the environment, so they feel and they read more clearly, I think, than in the remaster because of the little details there. I guess it kind of does look like an eye, come to think of it, and this would be like part of the iris, maybe. Yeah, it kind of does. It doesn't look. Oh, sorry. It doesn't look as good as the original, but I think it's an improvement over the remaster.
Area secure.
Also, like, let's go back to the to this, right? This is a good example of where I think that they did manage to make a weapon that feels modernized, right? It's like shinier, it's got a higher poly count and whatever. I think it's also got hexagons on there as well, but they're harder to see. But it feels closer to the original than the remaster. So, we'll see. I'm gonna play it when it comes out. Maybe I'll play it on stream. We can talk about it then, see what matches up. I'm gonna get going in a second, but let me check up on chat real quick. Rioman says, I'd still say Homelander is more evil. Aaron's motive is very human and relatable. Yeah, that's fair. I think Homelander is like a sadist, right? Like he loves ruining other people's days if he thinks that they're inferior to him. Aaron might be like it is a twisted psychopath, but I think his path to getting there is like slightly more relatable, which is I think what you're saying. Even if we don't condone his actions in the end. Batman versus El Lalia and outsmarting. I don't know Batman that well, but I'm. I feel like L is not as smart actually as the series makes him out to be. That came out kind of wrong, but I think like in his own series, if Batman was also there, L would probably be smarter than Batman based on the feats that he has, like based on like his reputation, how the manga is trying to portray him, right? But when you break down what he actually does, would he actually outsmart Batman in a battle of wits? I'm not sure. So I think he's like kind of carried a bit by his reputation, if that makes sense. I don't know if I explained that very well. Epsilon says this feels nothing like the original. I gotta be honest. That's a totally fair criticism. I think. I think the feel is very different, for sure. Like the emotional contour, like context of everything, feels very very different. But I can see. I feel like people on the remaster were basically kind of given carte blanche to just go like just make everything look quote unquote better. And here they do want to make it look better, but they were holding their cards a little closer to the chest, so to speak, or like they were a little bit more grounded. But it remains to be seen. Like when the game itself comes out, I'll probably do like a part 2 to this. Rioman says I think L is overrated too. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of like I do not have an IQ of 200, so if I wanted to write a character who has an IQ of 200, how would I do that? How do I come up with things that are so smart that I would never come up with, and then write a character that can believably do that sort of thing? I don't know. I have to go find some people with 200 IQs and see if they fucking can help me out, I guess. Learn what they're like and try to imitate them. But, it's a tough challenge. So I think that, like, if we give the author credit that L is actually as smart as the author tried to make L seem, then he would probably be smarter than Batman. But if you do Death of the Author or whatever, and you're like, okay, what does L actually do? I think there's a case that Batman could be smarter than he is. That being said, I appreciate you guys listening to me rant and ramble all night long. It's been super fun. This Sunday, I'm going to be back with Naruto streams. I think I am going to talk about the Noodles debates, specifically the one with Jay the Great. I'm on the fence about it because, frankly, I found some of the things that were said and the conduct that was demonstrated to be, how can I put this lightly, absolutely fucking disgusting and reprehensible. And I think that, like, as long as we as a community continue to allow and encourage and to participate in that sort of thing being said and done, we should be embarrassed of ourselves. There is no place for some of the conduct and some of the things that were said in our community at all, especially surrounding a series that's about like love and compassion and understanding. But even so, no human, certainly no adult, should be talking to another person the way that those people talk to each other, even if they're like mortal enemies, which I guess they are. Um, and it makes me feel embarrassed to say I am a Naruto YouTuber, if I can even use that term, when those people saying those things and acting those ways are part of that. Like I'm guilty by association or something. So frankly, the real problem is why are we even letting this shit happen in the first place? Why are we encouraging this? Why are we applauding? It's literally nauseating. It's unacceptable. Um, but I think it might still be worth talking about the arguments that came up and how they were phrased and framed. I am probably not going to sit there and listen to the rants. I'm probably going to skip through those. Once was more than enough. Um, but I think touching base on the overall state of our community right now would probably be valuable. So I think that's probably what's going to be Sunday stream. And then next Thursday, Dark Souls music, maybe? Not sure. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate the discussion, even if we disagreed about stuff. I hope you guys have a great night, and I will catch you Sunday. Bye bye.